Chapter 669. I can't believe Mr. Gohan finally showed up. After a long time, the reporter reacted and said excitedly, "Mr. Director, let's contact the Commission for Discipline Inspection and issue a subpoena to him. Let's see what he has to say then." The reporter said it lightly, as if contacting the Commission for Discipline Inspection and issuing a subpoena was a simple matter. But in fact, the director knew very well that it was almost impossible, because from the beginning, the Commission for Discipline Inspection and their court were not on the same path. Liu Lei had been the chairman of the Commission for Discipline Inspection for 10 years. The entire Commission for Discipline Inspection could be said to be Liu Lei's personal property. The leaders of the Commission were all Liu Lei's subordinate. Liu Lei's control over the Commission was unquestionable. This was also the reason why the Commission for Discipline Inspection did not make a move during the entire incident. They received Liu Lei's order to stay put. If the person behind the director could control the Commission for Discipline Inspection, or not completely, just a part of it, then the one who would make a move would not be the Yuzhong City People's Supreme Court, but the Commission for Discipline Inspection that directly managed the sword bearers. Just like Gohan said, in the entire incident, the Yuzhong City People's Supreme Court actually had no right to intervene. It was only because the victim was an ordinary person that the Yuzhong City People's Supreme Court could vaguely intervene. Commission for Discipline Inspection? A drop of cold sweat appeared on the director's forehead. In his script, Gohan would not answer the call. But he never expected that Gohan would answer it. Now he did not know how to act, because this part was not in the script. "Mr. Director, Mr. Director." The reporter who did not know what was going on was still urging the director. The sweat on the director's forehead increased. Just as the director was about to escape, a life-saving call came through. Hello, I am." The director escaped into his office with the help of the communication device, and then slammed the door shut, leaving behind many dumbfounded reporters and the equally dumbfounded audience. "Ha ha ha ha, Gohan's move is really amazing. I'm convinced." On the Yuzhong City Forum, an audience member wrote, "How is this powerful? Tell me." Someone in the crowd immediately asked. As a result, the previous audience member told them about the stakes in this matter. Only then did the others suddenly realize that there was actually so much fishy going on here. Then isn't this the end of the joint prosecution? Is that Gohan going to get away scot-free again? An audience member said indignantly, or rather, most of the audience members said indignantly. After more than 10 days of brainwashing by TV programs, magazines, and other news media, almost 80% of the citizens of Yuzhong City thought that Gohan was a bad person, a devil, and an unforgivable sinner. So when they heard that the joint prosecution couldn't do anything to Gohan, they felt angry and confused. "Sigh, that's about it. I told you that Yuzhong City's judicial system is 2F***ket up." The forum was filled with pessimistic voices. It seemed that Gohan's counterattack had won this time. This time, the joint prosecution had failed. But unexpectedly, after more than 10 minutes, the door of the director's office opened again. This time, the director walked out calmly and appeared in front of the cameras again. "Mr. Director, what do you plan to do next? Are you going to leave this matter unsettled again?" A reporter asked loudly. "No, absolutely not. This matter will not be left unsettled," the director said loudly and righteously. "Even if I know it's a failure, even if I know that there are people behind this, I will still send a message to the Commission for Discipline Inspection. I must let everyone know that there is still justice in this world, and there is still a group of righteous judges here." Clap, 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 clap. The director's speech caused a burst of applause. All the reporters clapped at the same time, cheering for the director's righteous roar. The director once again violated the court's work rules. According to the rules, to file a joint prosecution with the Commission for Discipline Inspection, it must be approved by the 5 judges and the director in a meeting at the same time. At the same time, this joint prosecution was also carried out secretly through official channels. It must not be made public, let alone announced in front of so many news outlets. Of course, in the face of power, these rules became unimportant. Moreover, the audience would not blame them for breaking the rules. They would only continue to praise them, thinking that they were good judges who truly made decisions for the people. In fact, in the past 10 minutes, in the office, the director received a mysterious message. This message secretly ordered the director to contact the Commission for Discipline Inspection in public. The director understood in his heart that this was to prove the connection between the Commission for Discipline Inspection and Gohan. Once the Commission for Discipline Inspection made a joint prosecution, it would leave a bad impression on the people of Yuzhong City. At that time, they might even be able to get a few positions in the Commission for Discipline Inspection. Therefore, in front of the camera, the good director who made decisions for the people called the Commission for Discipline Inspection. "Hello, this is the office of the Commission for Discipline Inspection. What can I do for you?" On the other end of the call, a standard sweet female voice said. "Hello, this is the Supreme Court of Yuzhong City. I wish to contact the chairman of the Commission for Discipline Inspection," the director said calmly. According to the director's plan, he should be obstructed here because the Supreme Court of Yuzhong City and the Commission for Discipline Inspection were not on the same level. As the director, he did not have the right to talk to the chairman of the State Council. If his luck was bad, this call would end here. "Okay, we understand. Please wait a moment, I will contact the chairman." It seemed like the director's luck was good. The office operator did not make things difficult for him, nor did he use bureaucratic jargon. Instead, he directly contacted the chairman. Less than 10 seconds later, a deep male voice appeared in the address book. "Hello, I am Sinew Sword Spirit, Mao Yepring." Sinew Sword Spirit was the chairman of the Commission for Discipline Inspection and also Lu Lei's old subordinate. Back then, he only had half his body left and was saved by Lu Lei. Therefore, he was loyal and obedient to Lu Lei. The entire Yuzhong City was extremely afraid of Sinew Sword Spirit. In the entire Yuzhong City, there were at least 1,000 sword-bearers who had been treated by Sinew Sword Spirit. This was a demon through and through. When the audience in front of the TV heard Sinew Sword Spirit's voice, they all felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. "Hello, I am the director of Yuzhong City's Supreme Court. I wish to..." Before the director could finish, he was rudely interrupted by Sinew Sword Spirit. "I know you. I am watching the live broadcast. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked her to put me through." The words, "I know you," made the director's hair stand on end. Being targeted by Sinew Sword Spirit was not a good thing. "Since you already know, then I won't say more. What do you think?" The director was a little timid when he spoke. He didn't even dare to speak a little louder. Clearly, he was extremely afraid of Sinew Sword Spirit. "What do you mean?" "Of course it's business," Sinew Sword Spirit said proudly. "Since you want me to jointly prosecute a sword-bearer, then let me ask you, do you have evidence?" Yes, we already have sufficient evidence," the director quickly said. "All right then, we, the Commission for Discipline Inspection, will jointly prosecute with you. We, the Commission for Discipline Inspection, will always stand on the side of justice and truth. We will not be biased towards anyone." With that, Sinew Sword Spirit hung up. It was settled just like that? The director touched his forehead in disbelief. With just a few words, the most difficult person to deal with in Yuzhong City, Sinew Sword Spirit was settled? The Commission for Discipline Inspection agreed to jointly prosecute with him? This was like a dream. The director faintly felt that things were developing further and further away from his script. At the same time, Sinew Sword Spirit's words were transmitted to the ears of every audience that was paying attention to the live broadcast. They cheered at the same time and praised loudly. The words on the internet are all lies. What Sinew Sword Spirit is covering up for Gohan? What sinew sword spirit is Lu Lei's lackey? These are all lies and rumors. The Commission for Discipline Inspection is still fair and just. Old Chairman, I have already done as you instructed. In the Chairman's office, Sinew Sword Spirit was talking to Lu Lei. This person who made Yuzhang City tremble with fear most of the time was as respectful as a child in front of Lu Lei. And this director didn't expect that when he was communicating with Sinew Sword Spirit, Lu Lei was by his side. Good, good, good. Lu Lei said 3 times in a row. This matter has been handled well. But old director, is this really okay? Sinew Sword Spirit asked doubtfully. Once we jointly sue, then Pavilion Master Gohan will. Clearly, Sinew Sword Spirit still had some doubts about Lu Lei's plan. He didn't know what Lu Lei was planning. It's fine, it's fine. Lu Lei smiled. Isn't the Discipline Inspections Trial Hall your turf? So that's how it is. I understand now. Sinew Sword Spirit also smiled. After ending the call with the Commission for Discipline Inspection, the director quickly ordered his subordinates to draft a subpoena and send it to the Commission for Discipline Inspection. He thought the Commission for Discipline Inspection would deliberately delay it for a while. Unexpectedly, in less than 20 seconds, the Commission for Discipline Inspection replied and stamped their official seal on the subpoena. This subpoena officially had legal effect. Therefore, in front of all the cameras, the dean once again dialed Gohan's number. But this time, before the director could say anything, he received such a reply. I'm watching TV. I know about the subpoena. I will be there on time. Goodbye. After saying that, the call was hung up. Our cute director didn't even say a word before he was hung up. Although it seemed like he had obtained victory and everything went exceptionally smoothly, the director's heart was getting more and more uneasy. Chapter 670. There was still one more day before he had to go to the Discipline Commission for Discipline Inspection for his trial. Logically speaking, it should have been more than 3 days, but it seemed like he was afraid that a long delay would bring trouble, so he set it to tomorrow. You guys do as you please. I'm going back to my room to rest. Gohan turned off the TV, got up, and walked to the room. Master. Long Xiaoya raised her head and muttered in a daze. She was filled with concern and worry. Do your own thing, I'll be fine. Gohan said expressionlessly, then added, Without my permission, no one is allowed to disturb me, including Qingpin and Gu Yun. The Discipline Commission's trial hall was a very mysterious place in the eyes of ordinary people. This hall was only open to sword-bearers who had committed crimes, and this case was never publicly heard. Therefore, in the eyes of ordinary people, this was a place only heard of but never seen, a place filled with all kinds of legends. And today, for the first time, this hall was open to all the reporters and media to broadcast the most famous case in Yuzhang City in the past few decades. All the major media and reporters arrived early, setting up their cameras, facing where the defendant stood, waiting for the plaintiff, the defendant, and the judge to arrive. The first to arrive was the plaintiff's family. The deceased son was still wearing mourning clothes, a white scarf tied around his head, and a big injustice written on his mourning clothes. Originally, they were going to bring the banners in, but unfortunately, they were stopped by the guards at the door, and the banners were confiscated. Perhaps it was because of his fear of this mysterious place. The son of the deceased, who had been crying every day in front of the temporary swordsman service center, was abnormally quiet at this time. He didn't say a word, and beads of sweat constantly dripped from his forehead, showing that his heart was not calm. The second wave to arrive was the Discipline Commission members. The Discipline Committee was made up of 7 Discipline Committee members, and the leader was naturally Xin Sword Spirit. The rest were all famed sword-level swordsmen, and all of them were famed for their fairness and prestige in the swordsman circle. Only these kind of swordsmen could make the unruly swordsman plead guilty and submit to the law. Of course, besides them, there were also the 3 judges of the Supreme Court of Yuzhang City. They were also sitting on the bench, but their seats were in the corner, showing their awkward position. The third wave to arrive were the onlookers. The Discipline Commission's trial hall was unexpectedly large, able to accommodate around 1,000 people. Usually, only the swordsmen would attend the trial. Ordinary people were not qualified to come here. Unexpectedly, the people sitting in these 1,000 seats were all ordinary people. Not a single one of them was holding a sword. These people were randomly selected by the highest level AI. Besides them, there were many gray-haired old men sitting on the special seats in the front row. They were the elders of Dishan's family. As the masterminds of this event, it was time for them to show themselves. In fact, these people were never afraid of surfacing, because they and Lu Lei knew very well in their hearts who their opponents were. Now that it was time to decide the winner and the loser, they naturally had to appear at the first scene, waiting for their victory or defeat. After a period of waiting that wasn't long, but felt like an eternity, the clock finally stopped at 8 o'clock. The long sword in the hand of the Exhilarating sword spirit let out a clear sword cry, announcing the start of the joint trial between the Discipline Commission and the Supreme Court of Yuzhong City. Bring the accused sword-bearer Gohan here. The Exhilarating sword spirit gave the order, and then the small door of the trial hall opened. Gohan, accompanied by 2 sword-bearers, came to the defendant's stand. The defendant's stand was surrounded by an alloy cage made of dimensional crystals. This was used to prevent the accused from hurting people, and was standard equipment in every court or trial hall. The calm Gohan glanced at the cage, then stopped and refused to go in. Sword-bearer Gohan, please enter the cage. The Exhilarating sword spirit sitting on the judge's stand said loudly. Mr. Chairman, what is my status now? Gohan looked at the Exhilarating sword spirit and asked. Didn't I say it already? You are the sword-bearer Gohan. The Exhilarating sword spirit replied stiffly. All right, since I am also a sword-bearer, then I am not a suspect, nor am I a prisoner. I shouldn't be in this cage. Gohan replied with a cadence. Nonsense. Everyone who is being tried should be judged in the cage, and you are no exception. The person who said this wasn't the Exhilarating sword spirit, but the judge sitting on the edge of the bench. Unfortunately, Gohan didn't even look at the judge, treating him as if he didn't exist. Gohan's eyes were only on the Exhilarating sword spirit. That makes sense. Let's do as you say, you don't have to stand in there. The Exhilarating sword spirit nodded and agreed with Gohan's words. He ordered someone to move the stool out of the cage and placed it behind Gohan's butt. Gohan sat down naturally. Next, the plaintiff will speak first. Plaintiff, tell us, what did the sword-bearer Gohan do to you, and what law did he break? Tell us all your grievances, and we will uphold justice for you, the Exhilarating sword spirit said to the plaintiff. Then the plaintiff stood up, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes, and complained in a tearful voice. The plaintiff's speech was very long, about a few thousand words. We won't list them one by one to avoid the suspicion of exaggerating the number of words. His speech was similar to what the media had said before. It was nothing more than his father being loyal to his duty, and courageous in protecting the public property of Yuzhong City. But this Gohan didn't allow any explanation, and killed his father indiscriminately, and it was such a cruel way to behead him. He asked the Commission for Discipline Inspection to punish Gohan harshly, deprive Gohan of all his positions and privileges, and then give him a life sentence. Incidentally, unless the sword-bearer committed a crime against humanity, the sword-bearer wouldn't be sentenced to death. The defendant, sword-bearer Gohan, have you heard the plaintiff's complaint? The Exhilarating sword spirit asked Gohan. I heard it very clearly, Chairman. Gohan nodded and replied. Then, the plaintiff's lawyer will begin the questioning. The Exhilarating sword spirit said faintly, Plaintiff's lawyer, you can question the defendant, sword-bearer Gohan, but you can't entice, cheat, or distort the truth. Do you understand? Yes, this one understands. The plaintiff's lawyer stood up with a serious face and asked Gohan, "First of all, I would like to ask the defendant, do you admit to killing the plaintiff's father?" "I'm not sure." Gohan's face was indifferent. "If you killed him, then you killed him. If you didn't kill him, then you didn't kill him. What are you not sure about?" "You are clearly quibbling," the plaintiff's lawyer said righteously. "You asked me if I killed the plaintiff's father. This is the first time I've seen this plaintiff. How would I know who his father is? Of course, I'm not sure." Gohan's answer was impeccable, and the plaintiff's lawyer gulped. "Okay then, I'll show you a photo." The plaintiff's lawyer projected a photo from his personal terminal. "His name is Kai Zhongwen, the father of the plaintiff, Kai Kong Kong. Have you seen this person and killed him?" Gohan glanced at the photo, nodded, and admitted, "If it's the person in the photo, I did kill him." Gohan's answer caused an uproar in the courtroom. They did not expect Gohan to admit it so easily. The plaintiff's lawyer was also proud, feeling as if he had made a great contribution. So, he continued to ask, "Let me ask you again, did you cruelly cut off Mr. Kai Zhongwen's neck with a sword?" "I did see his neck, but it wasn't cruel." Gohan said expressionlessly, "My sword was very fast, and he died without feeling any pain." "Humph, nonsense. Is it not cruel if there was no pain? How can there be such a saying in this world?" "Then may I ask this lawyer, what kind of death is considered not cruel?" Gohan asked back. "This." The lawyer thought for a moment and answered as flawlessly as possible, "For example, dying of old age, illness, and so on. To die of old age or illness, one needs to endure great pain, tossing and turning in bed for 10 to 20 days before dying. Maybe 1 or 2 years of pain before dying. Is that not cruel? Nonsense. Birth, aging, illness, and death are the laws of nature. How can it be cruel? And if there is great pain, we can also perform euthanasia." "There won't be any pain," the lawyer said angrily. "Then, if there is a chance, Mr. Lawyer, you can experience it. I promise that my swordsmanship will definitely be more peaceful than euthanasia." Gohan sneered. "Mr. Chairman, I protest. This man is threatening my personal safety." The lawyer raised his hand and said, "Sword bearer Gohan, please watch your words. Don't make threatening remarks, and answer the plaintiff's lawyer's questions seriously." "Thank you." Sinew Sword Spirit said. "Yes, I got it." Gohan nodded and said to the plaintiff's lawyer, "By the way, what question did you ask me just now?" "Let me ask you." "Let me ask you." The plaintiff's lawyer asked for a long time, but he couldn't say the next sentence. Obviously, after being interrupted by Gohan, the plaintiff's lawyer's thoughts were all messed up. This was only the beginning of the trial. Chapter 671. In the following trial, the plaintiff's lawyer asked Gohan a lot of questions, and Gohan answered them very clearly. The whole scene seemed to have calmed down and returned to normal. At the end of the questioning, the plaintiff's lawyer finished all the questions and was ready to make a concluding statement. Gohan suddenly asked a question. This was the first time Gohan took the initiative to ask a question. He asked, "Mr. Lawyer, how many people are there in your family? Are they living well?" "Sword bearer Gohan, what do you mean by this? Are you trying to threaten me?" As he said this, a few drops of sweat appeared on the lawyer's forehead. He thought that the reason why Gohan asked him this question was to secretly threaten him, to use the safety of his family to threaten him. "No, Mr. Lawyer, please don't misunderstand. I just want to know the answer to this question," Gohan said with a smile. "Okay then, I'll tell you. There are a total of 5 people in my family. They are living well, and they are very healthy. If something happens to them, you can't escape responsibility," the lawyer said loudly. Gohan didn't say anything else. Instead, he gestured for the lawyer to make a concluding statement. "Mr. Chairman, after my questioning, I can basically confirm the fact that the defendant, Sword Bearer Gohan, did indeed kill the plaintiff's father, Kai Zhongwen, and it was by beheading him. This is an extremely vile act, and I hope the plaintiff can have a fair trial, the plaintiff's lawyer said as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Defendant, sword-bearer Gahan, now it's your turn to speak. Because you didn't hire a lawyer, the Ethics Committee allows you to defend yourself, Sinew Sword Spirit said. Okay then, I'll say a few words. I didn't want to defend myself. Gahan stood up. Just now, I discussed the topic of cruelty with the plaintiff's lawyer. Everyone may think that I'm being unreasonable, deliberately disturbing the audience, and engaging in a boring debate. As for my question about whether your family is safe, you also think that I'm threatening you. Am I right? The audience was whispering, and no one answered Gahan's question. However, one could tell from their angry eyes that they all thought so. I'm asking this question because I want to tell this lawyer that if it wasn't for me, Gahan's sword, his family might already be gone. Maybe it's in Yuan Ko's stomach, and has probably become fertilizer by now. I, Gahan, admit that I killed the plaintiff's father, but I didn't do it for myself. I did it for the lives of the 3 million people in the core area of Yuzhong City, as well as the lives of the 40 million ordinary people in Yuzhong City. I, Gahan, not only am I not at fault for killing people, but I have done meritorious service. These days I've been very puzzled. Why are you so angry with me? Will such resentment me? It's as if I'm a sinner for all eternity. Everyone may know that I've been missing for the past few days and only appeared today. Do you know why? Gahan projected a photo from his personal terminal. The photo was of a medical pod. In the medical pod, there was only a person's head lying there. Below the neck, a small part of the shoulder had grown back. If one looked carefully, they could see that the head was actually Gahan's. This is my situation for the past 10 days. I was injured, very seriously injured, and only my head was left. If it wasn't for a kind person who saved my head and sent it to the hospital, you would have no chance to put me on trial. Gahan smiled and put the photo away. I always thought I was a hero. In order to save Yuzhong City, I was willing to sacrifice my life. But I didn't expect that someone would stab me in the back. This made me very disappointed. I'm disappointed in this city. I wonder if I should have saved this city in the first place. Maybe I should have just let it disappear with the wind. Hearing Gahan's self-defense, the onlookers suddenly realized why Gahan had been missing for so long. It turned out that he was seriously injured to the point where only his head was left. He was fighting for Yuzhong City, so he was actually a hero. The onlookers were talking about it, and their bad impression of Gahan also disappeared a lot. Then the question was, Gahan's head had always been on his neck, and it had never been separated. Where did this photo come from? The answer was very simple. Naturally, it was forged by Gahan, who said that the protagonist couldn't forge evidence. Gahan was not a person who would waste time on an insignificant problem. As long as he could win, it didn't matter if he forged a few photos. Nonsense. Seeing this, the plaintiff's lawyer stood up, walked to the front of the judge, and pleaded to the Nebula Sword Spirit, "Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions for Mr. Gahan. Please allow me." "Sure, ask away." The Nebula Sword Spirit nodded. "Mr. Gahan, after listening to your defense, I have a lot of questions. I wonder if you can answer them?" The lawyer said. "Up to you." Gahan sat down. "First of all, although I don't know much about medical pods, I know that a treatment like physical regeneration isn't something an ordinary medical pod can achieve. We can see that you, who are in the medical pod, have actually recovered part of your body. Is there such a miraculous medical pod in the world?" The lawyer asked confidently. "It seems that you really don't know enough about medical cabins." The one who answered this question was not Gahan, but the Sinew Sword Spirit who was sitting in the judge's seat. "I will answer this question on behalf of Mr. Gahan. There are indeed medical pods that can regenerate one's body in this world. As for the other details, it is not something you can know. This is confidential, Mr. Lawyer." "Oh." The lawyer's face turned red, but he immediately calmed down. He took a deep breath and asked questions like a machine gun. The Sword Committee released your missing person notice for a total of 13 days. In other words, during the 13 days after the apocalypse, the Sword Committee didn't know about your situation, nor did they know where you were. As far as I know, it only takes a few hours for your body to be reborn. So, why did you hide after a few hours? Why did you not let the Sword Committee know about you? It's simple, because the rebirth of the body didn't start immediately after the purge. It only started on the 13th day, which is when I returned to the Sword Committee, Guhan replied. That's even stranger. The rebirth of the body must begin within 3 minutes of the separation of the head. I'm afraid that half of your head would have rotted away in these 13 days. The lawyer's words caused the audience to burst into laughter. My head was frozen. As long as I can freeze my head in an instant, I can by about half a year. That's even more ridiculous. Where would you find a place to freeze your head in an instant on the battlefield? Even an ordinary medical cabin has the ability to freeze one's head in an instant. Didn't you say that you knew a lot about medical cabins? If you were placed in a medical cabin, then who did it? Why didn't he report your situation to the Sword Committee? It's my sword maidens. They turned back into their sword forms after my head was frozen. Naturally, they wouldn't report anything to the Sword Committee. Since your medical cabin can perform physical regeneration, why didn't you do it immediately? Instead, you delayed it until 13 days later. Is your medical cabin broken? A broken medical cabin can't freeze your head. You really don't understand medical cabins. Medical resources are needed to perform physical regeneration in medical cabins. At the beginning of the invasion, my medical pod was used to treat a few seriously injured people, and the medical resources in the medical pod were all used up. Only some freezing fluid was left, so naturally I had to freeze it first. I don't believe that no one found your medical cabin in 13 days. Could it be that the people searching for you are all blind? I don't know about that. I was frozen for 13 days. When I opened my eyes, it was already the 14th day. But the person who found me said that I was found in a mountain cave outside Yuzhong City. What a joke. The whole battle happened in the core area. How did you get out of the city? I was the one who sent him out. At this time, a majestic voice rang out. The person with the highest authority in Yuzhong City, the chairman of the Sword Committee, Lu Lei, walked into the trial hall and answered loudly. It was an emergency. Guhan fought dozens of dragon-level Yuan Ko. I couldn't save him in time and caused him to lose his head. In order to prevent her medical pod from being damaged by the aftermath of the battle, and because I didn't know if I could hold on and defeat the invading Yuan Yen, I used the Void Gate to teleport her to a place that I don't know. Are you satisfied with my explanation? Yes. The plaintiff's lawyer didn't dare to say anything else. He could only bow respectfully to Lu Lei and end the series of questions. As for the authenticity of the photo, the lawyer didn't care from beginning to end. He took it for granted that the photo Guhan took out was real and that Guhan had performed physical regeneration. In fact, all he had to do was ask Guhan for the photo and take it to an appraisal agency to find out that it was Photoshop. Unfortunately, he didn't expect that Guhan would dare to fabricate evidence. Lu Yin, you should get up. Lu Shihua patted Lu Yin's head. I'm not getting up. Let me sleep a little longer. Lu Yin hid his head under the quilt. It was a soft and comfortable goose feather quilt. Lu Yin couldn't bear to let go of such a wonderful feeling. Isn't today the day of the trial for that Guhan you're concerned about? Aren't you going to watch TV? Lu Shihua asked curiously. No, I'm not going to watch. I don't want to care about those things anymore, Lu Yin mumbled under the quilt. If you're not going to watch, I'll watch. Lu Shihua opened the door to his room. There was no TV, so he didn't need to change the channel. All the radio stations were broadcasting the trial live. Lu Shihua and Lu Yin heard a very familiar voice at the same time. Sister, Isn't that your master's voice? Lu Yin quickly crawled out from under the quilt and found his sister staring at the TV with a dazed expression. He's Gohan. Lu Shihua had seen Gohan without the mask, but he had never cared about Gohan's missing person notice. It was only today that he found out that his master was Gohan. No wonder he wears a mask when he goes out. Lu Shihua muttered to himself. Gu Xianyuan and Gu Yun are both his younger sisters. Naturally, his surname is Gu. I'm such an idiot. Chapter 672. Forget it. Even if everything you said is true, what does that prove? Can it cover up your murder? The plaintiff's lawyer said righteously. With Lu Lei as a witness, Gohan's words couldn't be refuted. The plaintiff's lawyer could only admit it. I never denied it. I said this to tell everyone that I had to kill him. If I didn't kill him, then your parents, brothers, and sisters would all die. So, I had to kill him, Gohan said expressionlessly. All of you have survived the invasion. Those of you who live in the normal area might not understand how terrible the situation in the core area was back then. Let me be blunt, if it weren't for me, the entire core area's defense system would have collapsed, and the dimensional barrier around the core area would have collapsed. When that happened, hundreds of thousands of yuan would have entered the normal area. Would your parents and siblings still be alive? Gohan's words caused a huge uproar. The crowd whispered to each other. This was something they had never heard of before. Could it be that the situation was really that dangerous at that time? What a joke. You're just being an alarmist. The plaintiff's lawyer sneered. I admit, Mr. Gohan, that you played a huge role in saving Yuzhong City. Without your leadership, the core area wouldn't have been able to restore order as quickly as possible. But so what? Are you willing to sacrifice an innocent life just for the sake of speeding up? Couldn't you have just walked there without a bus? Don't think that your contribution is so great. You've only done the most basic job of commanding. Anyone in your position could have done the same. Don't tell me you killed the last U-level Yuan Ko, Loki. Ridiculous. Very ridiculous. The lawyer laughed maniacally, but he never thought that he would reveal the truth of the matter, or rather, the further truth. Loki was killed by Gohan, and the powerful desolate level Yuan Ko and River Styx ancestor also died at the hands of Gohan, or more accurately, Gu Xianyuan. Unfortunately, such a fact could not be told. Later, the people of Yuzhong City would not be so angry with Gohan. No one would do anything to their savior. In Yuzhong City's official announcement, at the end of the battle, it was Lu Lei, the sword wielder of the immortal sword tier, and Misaka Mikoto, who worked together to kill Rocky. It was Lu Lei who saved Yuzhong City. It was not that Lu Lei was greedy for the credit, but it was Gohan who asked Misaka Mikoto to tell Lu Lei about it before the final battle. Otherwise, Lu Lei would not steal his own disciples' credit. As the saying goes, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Throughout history, the sword-bearers who displayed their talents did not end up well. They were all put on Yuan Ko's hit list and targeted. If the fact that Gohan, a mere sword-wielder, defeated the U-level Yuan Ko was made known, then the desolate level Yuan Ko would probably kill Gohan. Of course, it was more likely that neither Yuan Ko nor ordinary people would believe that it was Gohan's credit. They would only think that Yuzhong City and Lu Lei were shameless enough to push all the credit to Gohan. Because there was no recording of the final battle, there was no proof, so naturally no one would believe that it was done by Gohan. In Yuzhong City's official announcement, Gohan's credit was written as follows. Gohan led 40 sword-bearers to recapture the Yeyang fortress. Then, under Lu Lei's orders, he unified the entire Yuzhong City. Then, he led the sword-bearers in the ordinary district to build a stronghold in the core area of Yuzhong City. He gathered and rescued the scattered sword-bearers. At the same time, he took the risk to restore the emergency evacuation system of Yuzhong City. He also restored communication with Yuzhong City, allowing the survivors to enter the evacuation system and ensuring everyone's safety. As for the matter of defeating the U-level Yuan Ko, it was all Lu Lei's credit. This was a normal and logical answer. It was an answer that no one would doubt. However, Lu Lei still recorded the truth of the matter. Only the higher-ups of the Sword Committee of the base cities with SSS authority could see this document. As for whether they believed it or not, only God knew. This is the funniest joke I've heard this year. Gohan glared at the plaintiff's lawyer. His eyes contained a murderous aura. The plaintiff's lawyer couldn't help but take a few steps back. He felt a chill run down his spine. You want more than 1,000 swordbearers to go to the core area? Do you know how long it'll take? Let me tell you, it'll take at least 2 hours. The Doyu sword on Gohan's back made a clear sound, expressing the anger in its wielder's heart. Gohan clicked on his personal terminal and selected a few images to project. Look, this is a data map. Do you know what this data is? Gohan asked the plaintiff's lawyer. How would I know? I'm not a math student. The plaintiff's lawyer replied weakly. Let me tell you. This is the energy change data map of the Yuzhong City core area's dimensional barrier. Gohan's finger drew a circle in the middle of the data map. The entire data map was a curve, and Gohan's painting pavilion was at a low point of the curve. From the overall data map, this location was the second lowest point on the data map. Mr. Lawyer, I would like to ask you to do a calculation that even a primary school student could do. Please tell me, at this location, if it doesn't go up, how long will it take for this location to reach 0? This was indeed a question that even a primary school student could answer. I object. I refuse to answer this question. This has nothing to do with the entire case. The plaintiff's lawyer complained as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Objection overruled. The plaintiff's lawyer must answer this question, Sinew Sword Spirit said with a smile. About 10 minutes? The plaintiff's lawyer replied while sweating. It seems that your math is really bad. An accurate calculation would reach 0 after 7 minutes and 23 seconds. That is to say, after 7 minutes, the Yuzhong City core area's dimensional barrier will shatter. Gohan tapped the data map with force. My team and I arrived at this second lowest point. In other words, our team stabilized the core area's dimensional barrier. If we couldn't arrive in time, then after 7 minutes and 23 seconds, the entire core area's dimensional barrier would shatter. By the time we took 2 hours to walk over, I'm afraid that half of the ordinary district's population of more than 20 million would have suffered a huge disaster. I would like to ask everyone, is one person's life more important or the lives of 20 million people? Gohan turned around and asked all the onlookers present. The onlookers did not speak. The answer to this question was obvious, but at the same time, it was also a paradox in ethics. Was one person's life more important or the lives of countless people? This had always been a question that everyone knew the answer to, but they did not dare to say the real answer in order to show off. Yes, Gohan saved everyone. We can't do this to him. Because of Gohan's words, there were already opposing views on the forum that agreed with Gohan. That's right. One person's life is nothing. Moreover, Gohan is the hero who saved Yuzhong City. He really shouldn't be punished. Very soon, many people separated from the masses with the same view. However, there were not many of them, only about 30%. Ha 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 ha, Mr. Gohan, I already expected you to defend yourself like this. The plaintiff's lawyer's face was calm, as if he had not been flustered by Gohan's excellent defense. Yes, I admit that, Mr. Gohan, you did arrive in time. Without your timely arrival, the core area's dimensional barrier might have collapsed, but can this be a reason for you to kill someone? The plaintiff's lawyer punched the iron cage next to him to express the anger in his heart. Your mouth is very powerful, and you are very good at defending yourself. But since your mouth can argue like this, why didn't you try to persuade Mr. Kai Zhongwen? Why did you have to use the most extreme method of killing someone? The lawyer quickly walked to the plaintiff's stand and pulled up Kai Kong, who was silently crying on the plaintiff's stand. He pointed to the word injustice behind Kai Kong's back and said with incomparable sadness, Mr. Kai Kong just celebrated his 24th birthday. Just 10 days ago, he received his first salary in his life. He was going to use this salary to buy a warm shirt for his father to repay him for the hard work and care he had done for him for the past 24 years. But now he doesn't have this chance. A child wants to be raised, but his parents are gone. Is there anything more tragic in life than this? How he wishes to see his father again, kneel in front of his father, and call him Daddy. Mr. Gohan, can you understand this kind of pain? To you, that dead Mr. Kai Zhongwen is just an old man. In your eyes, he might just be a waste of food. You look down on him. You think there's a little problem, and it's like killing a dog, right? The plaintiff's lawyer said passionately, This is you. You may have made great contributions, but your heart is bad. Your heart is dead. You are worse than a pig or a dog. The plaintiff's lawyer's words were like a bomb. He instantly detonated the bomb of anger in the hearts of the onlookers present and the people in front of the television. The whole base society was in such a state of oppression. The sword-bearers were high above the ordinary people. All the ordinary people were looked down upon by the sword-bearers, and their own anger was directed at the sword-bearers. When one person said what was in their heart, the bomb in their heart exploded. Their eyes shone with fire. In an instant, the original 30% or so of people who supported Gohan on the forum were reduced to less than 10%. This plaintiff's lawyer successfully used his own passionate speech to reverse the situation. Chapter 673. Gohan was shocked by the lawyer. Although he had guessed that the other party should have been prepared for this, he did not expect that the other party would find a lawyer who could read aloud. Therefore, he did not expect that the lawyer's words would be so provocative. Fortunately, all of this was still under Gohan's control. He had also prepared for a long time. Mr. Gohan, please don't remain silent. Please answer my question just now. Why can't you use your beautiful mouth to persuade Mr. Kai Zhongwen? Why did you kill him, and why did you use such an extremely cruel method like beheading him? Did you not treat Mr. Kai Zhongwen as a living person in your heart? Did you treat him as a living person? I couldn't persuade him, Gohan said calmly. He is a very stubborn person. I don't know how long it would take me to persuade him. Moreover, there are many people standing behind him. I need to persuade not one person, but hundreds of people. I only have 7 minutes. Or rather, I didn't know how much time I had at that time. I could only end this matter as quickly as possible. Then you can knock him out. The lawyer added, Isn't knocking a person out a little easier than beheading him? For you, knocking a person out may be a little easier, but for me, knocking a person out is very difficult. Gohan stared at the plaintiff's lawyer's head. You can try it yourself. You can find a random person for me to knock on the head and see if he can pass out. The lawyer smiled awkwardly. Where can I find someone? Let me try it for you. Lu Lei suddenly jumped out. I'm an old man's head for you to try. Let's see if you can knock me out. The lawyer laughed even more awkwardly. Chairman, don't tease me. I wouldn't dare to knock your head even if you beat me to death. Then how about I try it for you? This time, the voice came from the audience. It was none other than Long Xiaoya. This guy actually drew one of the 1,000 places and ran to the trial hall to watch Gohan's trial. Then I'll try it. The lawyer saw that Long Xiaoya was a child who had yet to reach adulthood, and a sense of hope welled up in his heart. He felt that he should be able to knock a girl unconscious. Of course, the result was tragic. The lawyer swore to God that he used all his strength to knock on Long Xiaoya's head, but Long Xiaoya was still alive and kicking. She had no intention of fainting at all. Cough cough. I'm just an ordinary person. An ordinary person doesn't have enough strength to knock someone unconscious. You're a sword wielder. You're strong enough. Naturally, you can knock someone unconscious. The plaintiff's lawyer found a plausible reason for himself. I said, I can't knock him out. Gohan shook his head and said, That's impossible. Everyone in the world knows that a sword wielder can have the physical qualities of a sword mistress. You're a sword wielder of the treasure sword tier, so you can have strength several times that of a normal person. How could you not knock him out with your full strength? The plaintiff's lawyer said. If I go all out, he won't just faint. His head will explode like a watermelon. Gohan looked at his palm. I wasn't a sword wielder of the treasure sword tier at that time. I was already a sword wielder of the famed sword tier. I have 20 times the strength of a normal person. I had just synchronized my famed sword tier sword mistress, so I couldn't control my strength. If I hit him with my palm, he would also die, and it would be even crueler than beheading him. By the way, you're a lawyer. You should know that famous case from 30 years ago. Mr. Muri Korakuro, do you still remember it? Hearing Gohan mention Muri Korakuro, the lawyer was instantly speechless. Muri Korakuro's case was a very famous case. Muri Korakuro was a sword wielder of the famed sword tier. He wanted to go out and have fun with his friends, but his wife wouldn't let him, so he wanted to knock his wife out. In the end, because he didn't control his strength well, he directly smashed his wife's head. There were more than a dozen similar cases, all of which were sword wielder who couldn't control their own strength and killed people. With these cases in front of him, the lawyer had nothing to say at all. He could only chuckle. No, my father isn't stubborn at all. He's the nicest person in the world. If you talk to him nicely, he'll definitely step aside. Seeing that his lawyer was defeated, Kai Kong stood up from the plaintiff's stand and said firmly, No, your father will never be convinced. I can guarantee that. Gohan didn't even look at Kai Kong. Mr. Gohan, don't be so arbitrary. The neighbors all say that Mr. Kai Zhongwen is a very kind and amiable person. I believe that as long as you talk to him nicely, he'll definitely step aside. Therefore, the whole debate revolved around whether Kai Zhongwen would be convinced or not. In such a way, it was destined that no one would be able to convince the other. It was like debating whether Yang Guifei weighed 100 kilograms or 200 kilograms. This was something that could not be argued about. However, as the debate progressed, the focus of the entire trial was focused on this. If Gohan could convince Kai Zhongwen, then Gohan's execution would be meaningless. It would be a crime. On the contrary, if Gohan couldn't convince Mr. Kai, then Gohan would have no choice but to save Yuzhong City. Naturally, he wouldn't have any further responsibility. Gohan and the lawyer both realized this, so their debate became more intense. They both knew that if they could make the other party speechless and win this argument, it would be equivalent to winning the entire trial. They couldn't admit defeat. Both of them were eloquent people. After debating with each other for more than 10 minutes, the chairman, Sinew Sword Spirit, finally knocked on the trial table impatiently. Plaintiff and defendant, please end this debate as soon as possible. Wait. At this time, Lu Lei stood up again. I have an idea. Let's see if Mr. Kai Zhongwen can be convinced. The crowd was shocked. What idea did Lu Lei have that could actually make such an unsolvable debate come to an answer? Everyone, I have a good relationship with the highest level artificial intelligence. I'll ask her to help me with a small matter. After saying that, Lu Lei took out his personal terminal and said a few words into it. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Lu Lei received a satisfactory answer from the other end of the personal terminal. Sinew, come here. Lu Lei gave a few instructions to the Cosmic Sword Spirit. The Cosmic Sword Spirit nodded and gave a few instructions to his underling. A few minutes later, his underling brought a brand new gaming helmet into the courtroom. At the same time, this subordinate placed a rectangular metal box on the trial table. What is this? Sinew Sword Spirit asked his subordinate in front of everyone. It's like this. The subordinate moved closer to Sinew Sword Spirit's ear and whispered. Sinew Sword Spirit's face immediately showed a strange expression. Mr. Lawyer, come here for a moment. Lu Lei called the plaintiff's lawyer over. The plaintiff's lawyer was afraid. He really didn't know what Lu Lei was thinking. However, Lu Lei wouldn't dare to do anything to him in public. Although he was nervous, the lawyer still came to Lu Lei's side. Put on this helmet and follow the system's instructions. You let the lawyer put on the game helmet. Let the lawyer put on the game helmet and play games in the courtroom. This was a very ridiculous thing. However, since the one who gave the orders was Lu Lei, it was not ridiculous anymore. No one dared to object. Therefore, the lawyer put on the game helmet and entered the completely unknown world of the game. Lu Lei smiled and pressed on his personal terminal. An image that was clear enough for everyone to see was displayed in the air. The lawyer's body was at the very center of the image. He was in a spacious area. In the surrounding rooms, many hover buses could be vaguely seen. Isn't this the public transport hub? Soon, the audience who had been paying attention to the case discovered that the scene where the lawyer was now was the public transport hub where Kai Zhongwen got into trouble. What's going on? The lawyer saw that in the public transport hub, there were 100 people who seemed to be sword bearers standing helplessly. There were also 100 ordinary people who were tightly grabbing the sword bearers' sleeves or hugging their legs. There were also some people who simply lay down in front of the hover buses, refusing to let the sword bearers board. Sir Military Governor, we tried to persuade them to use these hover buses to fight in the core area, but these staff didn't understand us and refused to let us drive the hover buses away. They said that without the head office's order, they wouldn't dare to give us the hover buses. Otherwise, the head office would blame it on them. A team leader walked up to the lawyer and explained. He was also the one who was hugged the most tightly. A total of 3 people were hugging him, causing him to be unable to move at all. Sir, please pity us office workers. We can't even afford to pay for losing these buses, even if we kill ourselves. The staff immediately gave up on the team leader and hugged the lawyer's legs. Sir, please let us go. Don't touch the hover buses here. Without the head office's order, we really can't give them to you. The lawyer immediately recognized that the person hugging his legs the most was none other than the already dead Kai Zhongwen. Ghost! The lawyer screamed. He thought he had seen a ghost. It took him a while to realize that he was in a game, and this was probably a scene created by the game. Mr. Lawyer, come and try. See if you can convince Mr. Kai Zhongwen. I don't need 7 minutes, I'll give you 10, Lu Lei said to the lawyer in the game. The lawyer and the audience immediately realized that Lu Lei had contacted the highest-level artificial intelligence to create a game space that was exactly the same as the previous scene. This was to verify the topic of the debate. Mr. Kai Zhongwen, let go of me. I'm in a hurry to save people. The lawyer reacted quickly. He only had 10 minutes. He had to convince Kai Zhongwen. I'm doing this for the lives of my compatriots in the core zone. Please let go of me. Compared to Chapter 516, this lawyer was not even as eloquent as Gohan. Sir, please let us go. You said it so nicely. The swordsman who came to recruit the buses said the same thing, but in the end, the head office still forced us to pay them back. They deducted 70% of our wages for a whole 12 years. We still haven't paid them back. If you take another 100 buses, we won't be able to pay them back for the rest of our lives. My lord, please have mercy and pity us poor people. Kai Zhongwen said in a miserable voice. The lawyer was very familiar with these words. This was what Kai Zhongwen had said to Gohan. These were all recorded in the video. The lawyer had watched it many times. How could he forget? Mr. Kai Zhongwen, I'm begging you. Saving people is like putting out a fire. I'm doing this for the safety of the normal zone. The lawyer said bitterly. Kai Zhongwen didn't say anything. He just hugged the lawyer's leg. After 5 minutes of persuasion, Kai Zhongwen showed no signs of letting go. This caused the lawyer to suddenly have a murderous intent. He wanted to cut off this old man's head. Chapter 674. Why can't you guys understand what I'm saying? We need these buses to save people. If you don't give us the buses, how are we going to get to the core area? You're only losing some money, but the core area is losing lives. The lawyer, who had been persuading them, finally couldn't hold back the anger in his heart. At first, he was still smiling and persuading them, but now, he was reprimanding them fiercely. Other people's lives are none of our business. Without this money, our lives are meaningless. The old man was still stubbornly clinging to the lawyer's thigh, refusing to let go. Sir, saving people is like putting out a fire. Can I kneel down and beg you? Please do us a favor and give us the buses. The lawyer had already knelt down and hugged Kai Zhongwen's shoulder, lamenting, I beg you, we're waiting for your bus to save our lives. Without your bus, how are we going to get to the core area to save people with more than 1,000 swordsmen? Sir, I don't understand. Kai Zhongwen's eyes were a little playful. Sir, aren't you sword bearers? Can't you fly? You guys can fly there. Why are you taking our bus? Sir, you don't know. Only sword bearers above the spiritual sword level can fly. We're all sword bearers below the famous sword level. If we don't take the bus, we can only walk. The lawyer explained patiently. I'm puzzled. So you have legs. Kai Zhongwen stood up aggressively and looked down at the lawyer with a face full of mockery. Can't you walk with your legs if there's no bus? Strange, why did this sentence sound so familiar? Hearing Kai Zhongwen's words, the lawyer was dumbfounded at first, but then he immediately reacted. Wasn't this what he had just said to Gohan? The lawyer felt as if he had been slapped hard in the face. A sense of frustration and decadence welled up in his heart. He immediately wanted to quit the game, throw away the helmet on his head, and leave this embarrassing and sad place. Unfortunately, the lawyer couldn't do this. If he dared to do this, he wasn't sure what would happen to his family. The people behind him wouldn't let him go. The lawyer looked at the time. There were only 2 minutes left before the 10-minute deadline. The lawyer could only make one last attempt. Use your brain. Use your brain. The lawyer slapped his head hard. He spent 30 seconds reorganizing his thoughts and finally came up with a new excuse. He said to Kai Zhongwen with a sincere expression, Mr. Kai Zhongwen, I'll tell you the truth. According to our sword-wielding brothers near the core zone, the dimensional barrier in the core zone is in danger. I only have 1 minute left. We have to set off immediately. The dimensional barrier in the core zone will shatter soon. When that happens, Yuan Ko will rush into the normal zone, and we'll all be doomed. So be it. I don't care, I've lived enough. Kai Zhongwen was still indifferent. Grandpa, even if you've lived long enough, has your wife and son lived long enough? Your son is only 24 years old. He still has a bright future ahead of him, and he still has to take care of you in his old age. Do you have the heart to watch your son be eaten alive by Yuan Ko? Please think about your son. They can't die. This was the lawyer's ultimate move. In his opinion, all fathers loved their sons. In order to protect his son's life, Kai Zhongwen would definitely let go. However, he never expected Kai Zhongwen to say something like this. Don't talk to me about that bastard of a son. If I can let him die, I won't let go of you. Kai Zhongwen's face revealed a sorrowful expression. I've lived frugally to raise that bastard, but not only does that bastard not know how to be grateful, he even forces me to give him all my salary every day. If I don't pay him, he'll punch and kick me. Look at the scars on my body, they're all left by that bastard. After saying that, Kai Zhongwen tore open his clothes. His skin was as old as dead wood, and there were shocking bruises on it. My poor wife, her kidneys were damaged by that bastard. I've saved a bit of money for her to see a doctor, but that bastard took it away. My wife died of pain in bed. He also borrowed money in my name. I've already owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. These people call me hundreds of times every day. I can't even sleep well. That bastard even used his sister to threaten me. He said that if I don't help him pay back his money, he'll sell his sister to a brothel. Sell her to the disciples of Mount D as a slave. Sir, if you want me to let go of you, I can. As long as you help me kill that bastard, I'll repay you even if I have to work like a cow or a horse. Kai Zhongwen said with a tearful voice. After listening to Kai Zhongwen, the lawyer felt that every cell in his body was embarrassed. Just now, he had made such an impassioned statement, praising Kai Kong as a good son and a filial son. In the end, Kai Zhongwen had slapped him so hard that he couldn't even lift his head. The lawyer was not interested in arguing anymore. There was still half a minute left, but he took the initiative to quit the game. He took off his helmet and helplessly stared at Kai Kong on the plaintiff's stand. Wait, did I hear it wrong? Isn't this Kai Kong a good and filial son? A good child who doesn't fear the powerful for his father's life? How could he suddenly become such a scumbag? A member of the audience on the forum said angrily. Is it possible that it's a fake story? I don't believe that a person could be such a scumbag. Is he still AF * King Human? Alright, you don't need to guess. Kai Kong is my neighbor. We all know what kind of person he is. But because Kai Zhongwen is a good old man, in order to get justice for him, we didn't say anything. I'm also Kai Zhongwen's neighbor. I can tell you with certainty that Kai Kong can only be a scumbag, not a scumbag. Listening to Kai Kong's crying is like listening to a crosstalk. He also laughs at you idiots who still say good things about him. Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter. There was no doubt that after this speech was broadcasted, the direction of the forum changed again. Because of Kai Kong's bad behavior, the audience's impression of Gohan skyrocketed. Although there was actually no connection between the two. It was like directly deducing that China's football was terrible, that China's basketball was terrible. There was originally no connection at all, but because of the relationship between father and son, they were connected. No, it's not like that. I'm very good to my father. My first month's salary is used to buy clothes for my father. You have to believe me. After saying this, Kai Kong looked at his lawyer for help. Mr. Lawyer, please tell me. I can prove that I'm not that kind of person. Although the lawyer didn't want to prove it at all, thinking of the person behind Kai Kong, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and speak to Sinew Sword Spirit. Chairman, this is just a story in the game. It's not Mr. Kai Zhongwen himself at all. It's all a lie. Mr. Kai Gongxing is a filial child. I can prove it for him. You mean I'm faking it? You suspect that the highest level of artificial intelligence is faking it. Lu Lei said to the air with a smile. Bat, someone is suspecting you. Don't you want to prove yourself? Bat didn't speak, but the projector in the courtroom was instantly activated, projecting many photos. Without exception, these photos were all photos of Kai Kong punching and kicking his father. Finally, there was a video. The video showed the scene of Kai Kong forcibly snatching a stack of cash from his mother's hands, who was lying on the bed. Seeing this evidence, Kai Kong was unable to refute it. He fell on the plaintiff's stand as if all his bones had been pulled out. Real tears finally rolled down his cheeks. As the saying goes, one doesn't shed tears until one sees the coffin. Thanks to Kai Kong's performance, Gohan's support rate on the forum jumped from less than 10% to 40%. With a little more effort, Gohan's public opinion could achieve a reversal. Alright, we'll deal with this B** starred later. Since this lawyer can't convince Mr. Kai Zhongwen to get up, let's try someone else. Anyone in the audience who wants to give it a try is free to do so. As long as anyone can convince Mr. Kai Zhongwen to let the bus leave the bus hub within 10 minutes, we can convict Gohan. If no one can do it, then Gohan will be acquitted. Lu Lei then looked at Sinew Sword Spirit. Chairman, what do you think? Do you think it's okay? Chairman, what you said makes sense. I think we'll do that. Sinew Sword Spirit nodded, completely agreeing with Lu Lei's suggestion. Therefore, the trial mysteriously became a game to see who could convince Kai Zhongwen to get up. A few old men sitting in the first row of the audience frowned. One of them suddenly gathered a sword aura at his fingertip and pointed it at the lawyer's back. The lawyer felt a pain in his back and knew that the person behind him had made a move. They didn't want the trial to end up like this. They had to stop this ridiculous game. I object, the lawyer said loudly. This is just an artificial intelligence game. It can't simulate the real situation. If it was in reality, Mr. Kai Zhongwen definitely wouldn't do this. The artificial intelligence can't simulate the real situation at all. This game has no factual basis. Is that so? Do you think the highest level artificial intelligence can't simulate the real situation? Sinew Sword Spirit suddenly threw a rectangular metal box in front of the lawyer. This rectangular metal box was sent here before you entered the game. Everyone can see that no one has touched it from beginning to end. Open it now. The lawyer opened the metal box and realized that there was a small electronic memory chip inside. Turn off all the network connections in your personal terminal and play the contents of this electronic memory chip. Then, you'll understand everything. Although the lawyer was confused, he still followed Sinew Sword Spirit's instructions and turned off all the network connections in his personal terminal. Then, he inserted the electronic memory chip into his personal terminal and played the video inside. After the video was played, except for those who knew the truth, everyone's mouth turned into an O shape, including Gohan. They didn't expect to see such a shocking scene. Unimaginable, unbelievable, that was too scary. Chapter 675. Old Mr. Kai Zhongwen, let go of me. I'm in a hurry to save someone. In the video, the lawyer was saying this to Kai Zhongwen. Don't you find this sentence very familiar? It was like a replay of the game just now. But in fact, this was not a replay of the game, but a video played from the lawyer's personal terminal. This metal box had been placed on the trial table before the lawyer entered the game. No one had touched it, and the lawyer's personal terminal had been cut off from the internet according to the instructions of the Sinew Sword Spirit. Naturally, no one could have changed this video recording through the internet. Therefore, this video recording had been recorded a long time ago. Also, if one were to look closely at the video, they would find that the lawyer who was speaking looked different from the real lawyer. The lawyer in the video had a lot of pockmarks on his face, and Kai Zhongwen's appearance was also slightly different. It was obviously designed to distinguish him from the real one in the video. At the same time, the projector in the courtroom projected a video at the same time. The face of the lawyer in this video was exactly the same as the real lawyer. This video was the video of the lawyer's game just now. When the two videos were placed together, it formed a sharp contrast. Sir, if you want me to let go, I can. As long as you help me kill that B***starred, I will repay you even if I have to work like a cow or a horse. At this point in the conversation, both videos went dark at the same time. This meant that the plot in the game had ended. In the process of the two videos playing at the same time, other than the appearance, although it could not be said that they were exactly the same, there were only some very subtle differences in the conversation and actions of the two sides. For example, a few wrong words or a few missing actions. Everything else was exactly the same, just like a pair of twins. The video on the memory chip had been recorded before the lawyer entered the game. What did this mean? This meant that the highest level of artificial intelligence had completely guessed what the lawyer wanted to say and do before he entered the game. It had even guessed that he would leave the game half a minute earlier because of embarrassment. Seeing this scene, the lawyer's entire body trembled. It was as if he could already see his own failure and the tragic fate of his family. However, this was not the end of the video. After a brief black screen, a new scene appeared on the road. The start of the new video was a close-up shot of a sword chi hitting the lawyer's back. At the same time, the projector started playing. However, the projector did not record the scene of the lawyer being hit by the sword chi. Everyone only saw the clothes on the back of the lawyer shaking. "I object," the lawyer said loudly. "This is just an artificial intelligence game. It can't simulate the real situation at all. If it was in reality, he definitely wouldn't do this. The artificial intelligence can't simulate what really happened. This game has no basis in reality." The lawyers in the two videos spoke at the same time. Only then did people realize that this had happened in the courtroom in real life. Not only had the supreme artificial intelligence guessed the situation in the game, but it had also completely guessed the situation in real life. This rectangular iron box was sent here before you entered the game. Everyone can see that it hasn't been touched since the beginning. Open it now. At this point, the comparison video finally came to an end. No new video was played again, and the entire venue was silent. These two videos clearly proved the fact that the highest level of artificial intelligence was completely capable of predicting what was going to happen next. Based on the comparison video, the accuracy of the entire prediction was as high as 95%. Other than the minor details, the main dialogue and the development of the incident were exactly the same. There was no difference at all. This further proved the authenticity of the game simulation. It could simulate more than 95% of Kai Zhongwen's reaction to various persuasions, reflecting the terror and computing power of the highest level of artificial intelligence. Of course, this also made the audience who saw this scene faintly worried. If the highest level of artificial intelligence was so powerful, then wouldn't it be able to hide what would happen to humans in the future from her? This was really too terrifying. "Everyone, let me say a few words." At this time, Lu Lei stood up and said, "I believe everyone has seen the computing power of the highest level of artificial intelligence. There is no doubt about its simulation. What I need to add is that this kind of simulation must be based on sufficient information. The highest level AI has already collected countless information about Mr. Kai Zhongwen and this lawyer, and then used up only 30% of the highest level AI's computing power to predict the future to this degree. Therefore, you can put aside some unnecessary worries. If the highest level of artificial intelligence can really predict the development of the entire human race, then we humans would have won this war long ago, and Yuzhang City would not have faced the disaster of the invasion. I will still say the same thing. I will give everyone 6 chances. Anyone can come up to the stage and experiment. Within the 6 chances, whoever can make the bus leave the bus hub within 10 minutes without using any violence, then I will declare Gohan guilty and punish him. As for the fairness of the highest level of artificial intelligence, there is no need to doubt it. The highest level of artificial intelligence's core program is not allowed to lie. Once a lie is made, the highest level of artificial intelligence will immediately be formatted. It is absolutely fair and just. Lu Lei's words caused a warm applause, which meant that everyone had agreed with Lu Lei's proposal. They were also full of curiosity about the next development. Some people who thought they were eloquent were also eager to go up to the stage. Tamono Kakashi won't lie? Hearing Lu Lei's words, Gohan's heart palpitated. It seemed that Tamono Kakashi had hidden a lot of things from him. However, it did not seem right to attribute these things to lying. Gohan had a bad feeling in his heart. However, Gohan quickly let go of this feeling. This kind of thing was not what Gohan needed to be concerned about at the moment. Moreover, Gohan had received a lot of benefits from Tamono Kakashi. For example, without Tamono Kakashi's full help, how could Gohan have done this? Later, 3 or 4 people went up to the stage to experiment. These people usually boasted that they were unparalleled in eloquence. They could make the dead come alive and make girls look cute with big dicks. They felt that this was an excellent opportunity for them. If they could successfully convince Kai Zhongwen, Then they would be able to make a name for themselves in the entire human world. At the very least, they would be able to become celebrities in variety shows and open up a bright future. Unfortunately, these people failed. No matter how sweet their words were, no matter how persuasive they were, none of them could make Kai Zhongwen take a step away. This stubborn old man only knew one thing. He would not allow anyone to drive his bus away. Therefore, these people all left the place dejectedly. Friends, there is only one chance left. Who would like to come up and give it a try? Sinew Sword Spirit said with a smile. He admired Lu Lei very much in his heart. Old Ginger was indeed spicier. He could actually come up with such an unprecedented move. This was not a move that a normal person could come up with. The old chairman was indeed amazing. His realm was not something he could compare with. Me. Although the few people in front had already failed, many people still felt that their eloquence was not bad. They wanted to give it a try and raised their hands one after another. Sinew Sword Spirit was about to pick someone to go on stage when suddenly, an old hand was also raised. This shocked Sinew Sword Spirit and he did not know how to deal with it. This was because the person who raised his hand was not an ordinary person sitting in the last few rows, but an old man sitting in the first row. Although he was only a famous sword-bearer, Sinew Sword Spirit could not underestimate his identity. This was because his great-great-grandfather was none other than the previous Yuzhang City Emperor, Jiendi Terminus. Terminus Jiendi had ascended less than 100 years ago. He was the most recent Jiendi in Yuzhang City, and also the most influential Jiendi in Yuzhang City. He was highly respected by the sword-bearers in Yuzhang City. Once he raised his hand, Sinew Sword Spirit could not ignore it. Senior Myriad Swords, may I know what advice you have for me? Sinew Sword Spirit asked respectfully. Senior Myriad Swords' real name was Terminus Myriad Swords. It was said that they were originally surnamed Zhong. Later, because their ancestor's title was Terminus, they changed their surname to Terminus to show respect for their ancestor. However, in the eyes of some people, this became a boring method to borrow the prestige of their ancestor. They were afraid that others did not know that their ancestor was Terminus Jiendi. Old man, I have no other advice. I am just curious about this experiment. There is one last chance left. I wonder if this old man can go up and give it a try? Terminus Myriad Swords said, fascinated. This. Sinew Sword Spirit did not know what to do. He turned to look at Lu Lei. Lu Lei did not seem to notice. Instead, he looked at Gohan. There was no one else to look at, and he did not need to look at anyone. He nodded very calmly. Hence, Lu Lei nodded. Sinew Sword Spirit said, since Senior Myriad Swords is interested, then this junior is more than willing. I believe that with Senior Myriad Swords' experience, you will definitely be able to persuade this stubborn old man. Senior Myriad Swords, please. The helmet was passed to Terminus Myriad Swords. Terminus Myriad Swords fiddled with the helmet. Suddenly, an awkward expression appeared on his face. He handed the helmet to the staff beside him. What's wrong? Is there a problem with this helmet? Sinew Sword Spirit asked in confusion. No. Terminus Myriad Swords laughed even more awkwardly. How do I use this thing? I have never used this thing before. Perhaps because it was too awkward to say this out loud, Terminus Myriad Swords added, games are child's play. I have never cared about them since I was young. Naturally, I will not use this thing. Chapter 676. After a series of hands-on instructions from the staff, the Terminus Myriad Swords finally learned how to use the helmet and entered the game. After a similar opening, Kai Zhongwen hugged the Terminus Myriad Swords' legs. It was finally the Terminus Myriad Swords' turn to perform. Let go of my legs. I'll help you kill that unfilial son of yours. The Terminus Myriad Swords' words were indeed extraordinary. Everyone else would start off with kind words, but he was the only one who wanted to kill Kai Zhongwen's son, Kai Kong Kong. It seemed like he was courting death. However, he didn't expect that Kai Zhongwen, who had been holding on to the ultimate swords tightly, would actually loosen his grip on the ultimate swords after hearing the ultimate sword's words. "Sir, what's the meaning of this? Are you trying to threaten me with my family?" Kai Zhongwen asked with a strange expression. "I heard that your son is extremely unfilial. He killed his wife and wants to sell your daughter to a brothel. Is that right?" The terminus myriad swords said coldly. "Sir, how did you find out? How could a big shot like you know about my family's affairs?" Kai Zhongwen's expression was filled with fear. Kai Zhongwen didn't know how the terminus myriad swords knew about his family's affairs, but the onlookers knew. "Didn't you say it yourself? You don't need to know how I found out. Just tell me, do you want him to die? I promise you in the name of the Terminus family that as long as you let go now and let me save the core area, I'll make sure that unfilial son of yours will never disturb you again." In the end, Myriad Sword's temperament was as deep as the abyss. This was a temperament that only those who had been in power for a long time could possess. When ordinary people felt this kind of temperament, they couldn't help but want to worship in front of such people and believe in their words. This. Kai Zhongwen fell into deep thought. No one wanted to kill their own child, but the situation was different when their own child wanted to kill them. Weren't there many parents who sent their children to the electric shock divine beast before the apocalypse? "If you don't let me live, then I won't let you live either. I'm sorry, I can't let go." Kai Zhongwen's forehead was dripping with sweat. "Although that animal is unfilial, he is still my son. He is the last descendant of my Kai family. My Kai family cannot end here." It seemed that the 10,000 swords of the apocalypse's persuasion had failed. Kai Zhongwen's desire to continue his bloodline prevailed, and he did not let go. "Then let's have another one." The 10,000 swords of the apocalypse coldly said, "I will extract the sperm from your body, and then find a woman with a high degree of education and good looks to provide the eggs. I will return you a son that is 1,000 times better than this animal. And I promise you, if you don't have the energy to raise it, my N family will raise it until it's 24 years old and give it the best education. It might even become a sword-bearer in the future." Kai Zhongwen was completely shaken by the ultimate sword's promise. He raised his head, looked at the ultimate swords, and whispered, "How do I know you're not a liar? Are you really a member of the ultimate family?" The ultimate swords of the apocalypse did not answer him. Instead, he tapped his personal terminal on Kai Zhongwen's personal terminal. Then, a friend request appeared on Kai Zhongwen's personal terminal with the name 10,000 Swords of the Apocalypse written on it. In the entire Yuzhang city, apart from the ultimate family, no one dared to use the surname Apocalypse, so there was no doubt about the identity of the ultimate swords of the Apocalypse. "I originally wanted to give you tens of millions, but now that the banking system has collapsed, I can't transfer money to you. How about this? I promise you in the name of the Destiny Clan that the people from the public transport company won't dare to say a word of no to you. If they dare to fire you or make you pay compensation, I'll make them scram from their positions. I won't go back on my word." Kai Zhongwen lowered his head, thought for a moment, and asked in a low voice, "Sir, can you leave me a written receipt?" "I don't have a pen and paper right now," the ultimate swords of the apocalypse said, his eyebrows twitching. "Then just leave an electronic receipt and send me a message," Kai Zhongwen said quickly. An electronic receipt was not a troublesome matter. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse finished writing it in a few seconds and handed it to Kai Zhongwen. The receipt made Kai Zhongwen lose his stubbornness. He hurriedly let go of his hands and let the ultimate swords of the apocalypse's legs regain their freedom. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse only took 3 minutes to achieve what 6 people could not do. F***CK. Did he win just like that? A member of the audience on the forum said in surprise. Is this really persuasion? Is he trying to persuade people? A member of the audience said in dissatisfaction, "This is clearly a threat and a bribe. What does this have to do with persuasion?" "Brother, you're wrong. Threats and temptations have always been one of the methods of persuasion. They all use their mouths to make the other party listen to their opinions. As long as the ultimate swords doesn't use violence, it's fine," another member of the audience said. "This is cheating. This is blatant cheating," a member of the audience criticized. "He's using his identity as a member of the ultimate family. If it weren't for his identity, Kai Zhongwen would not have believed what he said. If he didn't add Kai Zhongwen as a friend using the identity of the ultimate swords of the apocalypse, Kai Zhongwen would not have let go. This is cheating using his identity and power. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse can't be considered a success." "That's right. I agree with the person above." Someone immediately followed up, "This is an experiment to see if Gohan can persuade Kai Zhongwen. Gohan is just an ordinary sword wielder. Even if he added Kai Zhongwen as a friend, Kai Zhongwen would not know him and would not believe that he has any power to help him. It is impossible for Gohan to persuade the other party like Kai Zhongwen did. This cannot be used as evidence." The views of these two netizens hit the nail on the head. Although the ultimate swords of the apocalypse had successfully made Kai Zhongwen let go of his hand, it was completely achieved by using his identity. If the ultimate swords of the apocalypse was not called the ultimate swords of the apocalypse, but something like White Sword or Black Sword, Kai Zhongwen would not have paid attention to it. Although some netizens spoke the truth, the discerning ones were in the minority. Most people still applauded and cheered for the ultimate swords of the apocalypse. They said that since the game was set to use his identity and not Gohan's, it meant that the highest level of artificial intelligence approved of this method. There was no doubt that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would win. As a result, the forum instantly became a mess. Putting the matter of the forum aside for the time being, in the game, the ultimate swords of the apocalypse realized that Kai Zhongwen had let go of his hand, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Although he knew that all of this might be broadcasted live on television, although he knew that his actions might arouse the disgust of the ordinary audience, and although he knew that a warm smile would have a better effect, the ultimate swords of the apocalypse did not bother to do so. However, the terminus myriad swords disdained to do so. He could make others act as though they were of equal status, but he would never do so himself. He was the descendant of the terminus sword emperor, so he disdained to do such a thing. If it was not for the fact that Lu Lei was about to win and his plan was about to become a laughingstock, he would not have stepped forward and done such a thing. Ordinary people are despicable. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse thought to himself as he strode toward the bus. "Lu Lei, you finally lost. It belongs to me. Am I really going to lose?" The Xinu sword spirit thought anxiously. He glanced at Lu Lei and Gohan, but found that the two of them were quite calm, as if the ultimate swords of the apocalypse's victory was not a victory at all. The Xinu sword spirit's heart skipped a beat. He knew that there was something fishy about this. Sure enough, a few seconds after the ultimate swords of the apocalypse celebrated his victory in his heart, he suddenly felt his legs being hugged again. Did Kai Zhongwen go back on his word? The ultimate swords of the apocalypse was furious. He looked down and was surprised to find that the person hugging his legs was not Kai Zhongwen. "Who are you? Who are you?" The ultimate swords of the apocalypse asked in a panic. Sir, ultimate swords of the apocalypse. My name is Chun Bianbian, and I am also an employee of this bus hub." The man pressed his dusty face against the ultimate swords of the apocalypse's clean trousers and pleaded, "Sir, ultimate swords of the apocalypse, I also have an unfilial son in my family. He stole my last bit of money. Sir, please help me kill that unfilial son." The ultimate swords of the apocalypse's face darkened when he heard Chen Bianbian's words. He suppressed his anger and nodded. "All right, I promise you. Let go of my hands. Sir, shouldn't you leave me a written promise as well? Take it. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse threw a written promise into his personal terminal in disgust. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, may you live to 100 years old. Chen Bianbian said a few auspicious words and decisively let go of his hands. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that this should be the end of it. However, he did not expect that in the next second someone would hug his thigh again. This time, it was an old woman who was hugging him. She sobbed and complained that her house was too small and too dark. There were already 3 generations of people living in it. She hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would change his house. Damn it, what does it have to do with me if you change your house? 10,000 swords of the apocalypse really wanted to scold the old woman, but he held himself back. He agreed with a pig-like expression and left a written promise, letting the old woman go happily. However, this was not the end. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse was horrified to find that the remaining hundreds of people in the bus hub had all gathered around him. At the same time, 4 or 5 people were hugging his thigh and complaining about their pain. Some of them were out of money and hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would give them some money. Some wanted to be promoted and hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would help them get promoted. Some wanted to treat their illnesses and hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would introduce them to doctors. Some wanted to live in the core zone and hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would give them a place as a citizen. There were even some who were still single at the age of 40 and hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would find them a 20-year-old wife. The most unreasonable person was a 50-year-old old man. It was not that he hoped that the ultimate swords of the apocalypse would find him a wife. He said that he had a beautiful daughter and hoped that she could be his daughter-in-law. He even took out a photo of his daughter. The ultimate swords of the apocalypse was so shocked that he almost threw up his dinner from last night. Chapter 677. The anxious Terminus 1,000 swords calculated in his heart. Even if he agreed to all of their requests, the remaining 5 minutes would not be enough. It was impossible for him to agree to all of their requests. Therefore, the Terminus 1,000 swords tried his best to maintain his rationality and said to everyone, "I agree to all of your requests. I promise to fulfill all of your requests. Now, get out of my way and come find me after the battle is over." The Terminus 1,000 swords thought that if he satisfied all of their requests, they would obediently get out of his way. However, these people did not show any signs of wanting to leave. One of the old men sneered and said, "Sir, don't treat us like fools. If you don't add us as friends and give us a written contract, we will not leave." The Terminus 1,000 swords almost spat out a mouthful of blood. More than 100 people were asking him for a written contract. He would not be able to leave without 20 minutes. However, he only had less than 3 minutes left. In a moment of desperation, the Terminus 1,000 swords pulled out his sword lady and pointed at the 100 people and said, "All of you, get out of my way. I, the Terminus 1,000 swords, am a man of my words. I will never lie to you. I promise to fulfill all of your requests. Now, get out of my way. Don't blame my sword for being merciless." The gleaming sword, coupled with the Terminus 1,000 swords' ferocious expression, was very intimidating at this moment. Unfortunately, the Terminus 1,000 swords compromise had the opposite effect. He did not take his threat seriously at all. I was even more convinced that he was not sincere and was just trying to trick me into getting out of his way. How could these people let go of the benefits that were right by their mouths? They surrounded the Terminus 1,000 swords even tighter and showed no signs of wanting to leave. Seeing this scene, a huge wave of anger rushed to the Terminus 1,000 swords' head, causing him to lose his last bit of rationality. With a wave of the long sword in his hand, dozens of heads rolled to the ground. The entire scene instantly fell silent. After 3 or 4 seconds of silence, An old man let out a shocking shout and quickly fled the place. The rest of the people who were not dead seemed to have woken up from a dream and fled. In less than 5 seconds, there was no one around the terminus Thousand Swords. He could finally drive his bus with peace of mind. However, what was the point? The terminus Thousand Swords' face darkened as he threw the sword in his hand to the ground and left the game. Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter. In the end, I still ended up killing someone, a member of the audience on the forums said while laughing wildly. That's right. Furthermore, our Lord Final 10,000 Swords killed dozens of people in one go. He's much more powerful than that Gohan. That Gohan only dared to kill one person. Our Lord Final 10,000 Swords is more powerful. I'm completely convinced. Another member of the audience also laughed hysterically. Be reasonable. Put yourself in their shoes. If it were me, I would also kill them. These old fellows are too shameless. How can they be so insatiable? This is a disgrace to the people of Yuzhong City. An audience member said angrily. Yeah. Seeing this, I almost died of embarrassment. How can you be so shameless? In fact, this was human nature. Everyone loved to take advantage of others. What angered people the most was that others took advantage of others, but they didn't. If no one took advantage of others, it would be fine. However, if a neighbor or friend took advantage of others, the rest of the people would immediately swarm around them. They wished that everyone could take advantage of them. Otherwise, their thoughts would not be satisfied. They would feel indignant and might even die of depression. However, if everyone took advantage of others, even if they were at a disadvantage, it was also a comfortable thing to do. This was the situation that the terminus Thousand Swords encountered. Kai Zhongwen was able to take advantage of the terminus Thousand Swords, and the others were naturally jealous. If they couldn't take advantage of the central Thousand Swords, they wouldn't feel comfortable for the next few months. This was why everyone surrounded the terminus Thousand Swords. If they didn't take advantage of the central Thousand Swords, they wouldn't rest until they took advantage of him. Brother Terminus, thank you for your hard work. Seeing that the terminus Thousand Swords came out of the game, Lu Lei immediately greeted him with a smile. He put his arm around the terminus Thousand Swords' shoulder and said, "Brother, don't be angry. This has nothing to do with your moral character. It's all because these people are too unreasonable. If it were me, I would also want to kill them. Am I right?" "Yes, you're right." The terminus Thousand Swords had mixed feelings. It was as if he had overturned a seasoning plate. He looked at Lu Lei's eyes with resentment. He could only say that Lu Lei was right. If he said that Lu Lei was wrong, wouldn't it prove that he was also wrong to kill people? In the end, he had beheaded dozens of people. This mistake was much worse than Gohan's. If he judged Gohan guilty, wouldn't he be even more guilty? After saying that, the terminus Thousand Swords flicked his sleeves and left. He did not return to his seat and left the judgment hall on his own accord. He was too ashamed to stay there any longer. Lu Lei showed a disdainful smile as he watched Sword Terminator leave. He clapped his hands and said to the audience, "Although the 6 spots have been used up, I can give anyone who wants to come on stage and try again. We pay attention to fairness and openness here, so we must make sure that everyone is convinced. Come on, who else wants to try? Come up to the stage." With the terminus Thousand Swords as an example, nobody dared to go up and try. After waiting for 2 minutes without a response, Lu Lei nodded at the Xin Sword Spirit. The Xin Sword Spirit knocked the hammer in his hand and said in a clear voice, "Since no one has any doubts, I will announce the verdict. After a strict trial by the court, it is determined that the swordsman, Gohan, is not." Wait! Just when the Xin Sword Spirit was about to announce Gohan's innocence, an old man sitting in the front row finally could not hold it in anymore. He raised his voice and stopped the Xin Sword Spirit from pronouncing the verdict. "Oh, isn't this Senior Sure? Does Senior Sure have anything else to say?" the Xin sword spirit asked. The senior sure that the Xin sword spirit mentioned was the second emperor sword wielder in Yuzhang City, Chen Shuangjiandi's descendant. His name was Shi Jueyuan. He was also the mastermind behind the whole incident and the main driving force. By the way, the third son of the Shi family was his grandson. Seeing his plan fail because of Lu Lei's trick, he did not know that it was all Gohan's idea and that Lu Lei was just following Gohan's plan, and seeing his ally, the Terminus Thousand Swords, flee in panic, he knew that he was in a desperate situation. If he did not think of a way to turn the situation around, not only would he lose this battle, he would also lose control of Yuzhang City. Even if Lu Lei died in the future, Yuzhang City would still fall into the hands of Lu Lei's disciples. His family would not have a good time. There's no other way. I can only use my last resort. In Shi Jueyuan's plan, unless it was absolutely necessary, he could not use the impeachment of the emperor's bloodline to completely shed all pretense of cordiality. However, at this time, Shi Jueyuan had to shed all pretense of cordiality. After saying that, Shi Jueyuan looked at a man next to him. This man was about 40 years old. Although he was dressed very neatly and looked decent, he had a decadent temperament. He was like a pile of soft mud sitting there. He was no different from a useless person. When the man saw Shi Jueyuan looking at him, he couldn't help but shrink back. He lowered his head in fear, and his heart was filled with regret. This man was the current family leader of the heaven-shrouding family. He was also Yi Wenjun's father. 7 or 8 days ago, he had offered the impeachment of the emperor bloodline to Shi Jueyuan in order to re-enter the circle of the emperor's sword family. But now, he saw that Shi Jueyuan's plan had been easily resolved by Lu Lei. Instead, it was him who was being slapped in the face. Only then did he realize that he had done the stupidest thing in the world. He had offended Lu Lei, the real ruler of Yuzhang City, for the sake of a little reputation. He didn't know how many times he would be punished. If he could win, then it would be fine. He could get a lot of benefits from Shi Jueyuan. But if the impeachment of the emperor bloodline failed, then he would be useless to Shi Jueyuan. If he offended Lu Lei, then his days would become more and more difficult. Thinking of this, he regretted it. He did not want to initiate the impeachment anymore. Yi Wuing, could it be that you want to go back on your word? Lu Lei has to leave some face and a way out. But when I, Shi Jueyuan, do things, I never give anyone face or leave a way out. Are you sure you want to offend me? Shi Jueyuan said to Yi Wuing through voice transmission. When Yi Wuing heard this, the last bit of courage behind her disappeared. She could only stand up shakily and recall the lines she had memorized. She closed her eyes and said to the judges, Sinew Sword Spirit President, I want. Yi Wuing, family leader, Yi wants to take the lead and lead the 4 families to impeach the emperor bloodline. Am I right, esteemed family leader Yi? Shi Jueyuan saw through Yi Wuing's thoughts and spoke for him. Family leader Yi, is what Senior Shi said true? You want to initiate the impeachment of the emperor bloodline that I've never even heard of? Yes. I want to initiate it. Yi Wuing was about to cry, but he had no choice. Apart from saying that he was right, there was nothing else he could say. What the hell is the impeachment of the emperor bloodline? Lu Yin asked in front of the television. How would I know? Master never told me. Lu Shihua stuck out his tongue. After seeing Gu Han's performance in court, Lu Shihua admired him from the bottom of his heart. This was because Lu Shihua knew that Gu Han was the one who arranged all the plans. He even overheard Lu Lei's conversation, and the content of the conversation was related to this plan. Someone is knocking at the door. Do you want to open the door? Just then, Lu Shihua suddenly heard such a voice coming from the room. It was the voice of the electronic system, which meant that someone was asking to enter the door. At this time, apart from Wen Meiyun, who was injured in bed, and Lu Anna, who was crazy, There were only two normal people in the room, Lu Shihua and Lu Yin. Lu Shihua walked to the door and looked at the screen. He found that it was Long Xiaoya standing at the door. Lu Shihua quickly opened the door. Long Xiaoya rushed in and grabbed Lu Shihua's hand. She gasped and said, "Sister Shihua, hurry up and come with me." "Where are we going?" Lu Shihua asked in confusion. "We're going to the trial hall now. The master wants you there now. Hurry up or you'll be late." After that, Long Xiaoya took Lu Shihua and ran away. Chapter 678. Xian Yu Sword Spirit finished reading the impeachment materials submitted by Yi Wuying. His expression was unusually serious. Even though he was the chairman of the disciplinary committee, he had never heard of impeachment from Emperor bloodline in Yuzhong City. Xian Yu Sword Spirit thought about it, stood up, and wanted to hand the materials to Lu Lei. However, Lu Lei waved his hand, indicating for Xian Yu Sword Spirit to sit down. The Xian Yu Sword Spirit realized that the old chairman didn't look surprised at all. He knew that everything was within the old chairman's calculations again. "Xian Yu, have you finished reading this impeachment?" Shi Juyuan's expression was gloomy. It wasn't his original intention to take this step, but he had no choice. He could only take this step. "Junior has finished reading it." Xian Yu Sword Spirit sighed. "Family Head E. Family Head Shi. Family Head Lu. Family Head Lin. Family Head Final. Are you sure you want to start this impeachment?" The Lu clan and the Lin clan were the other two clan heads who had participated in the impeachment of the imperial bloodline. Their ancestors were sword emperors. "How can this be fake?" Shi Juyuan snorted. The other two family heads beside him also stood up. They nodded at Xian Yu Sword Spirit and said, "That's right. As for that old bastard Yan Wanjian, he left first. However, the family seal he stamped on the impeachment letter cannot be faked. There is no need to doubt his attitude." "Sinew, what else do you have to doubt?" Shi Juyuan said coldly. "I don't dare. I don't dare." Xian Yu Sword Spirit threw the materials to the side. He stared at Shi Juyuan and said helplessly, "May I know who you want to impeach, Senior Shi? What do you want to impeach? I don't think this impeachment document is written clearly." "I want to impeach your Sword Tower Pavilion Master," Shi Juyuan said sternly. His answer caused an uproar. Shi Juyuan actually wanted to impeach the Sword Tower Pavilion Master. Wasn't this Sword Tower Pavilion Master Lu Lei? He actually wanted to impeach the number one person in Yuzhong City, the only sword wielder with a celestial sword. Was it time for Yuzhong City to change? "Chairman!" Xian Yu Sword Spirit stood up abruptly, his expression changing drastically as he looked at Lu Lei. Lu Lei smiled faintly and did not speak, as if all of this had nothing to do with him. "Elder Shi, may I ask why you wish to impeach the chairman? What mistake did the chairman make?" Xian Yu Sword Spirit said coldly. The surrounding crowd also looked at Shi Juyuan indignantly. The fact that Yuzhong City was able to escape the attack and survive was the result of the battle between Lu Lei and Rocky. They were very grateful for this. They didn't expect that Shi Juyuan would dare to accuse Lu Lei. They were all furious. "Chairman? Our respected Chairman Lu Lei?" Shi Juyuan laughed. "Sinew, don't get me wrong. We don't have the guts to impeach President Lu Lei. President Lu Lei's contributions to Yuzhong City are clear to all. How can we impeach him?" "Humph, didn't you want to impeach the Sword Firmament Pavilion's Pavilion Master? Isn't this impeaching Chairman Lu Lei?" Xian Yu Sword Spirit sat back down stiffly. "Hey Sinew, don't take it for granted. How do you know that the Sword Tower Master is still Chairman Lu Lei?" Shi Juyuan smiled even more brightly. "Nonsense. Who in Yuzhong City doesn't know that Sword Immortal Cloud Sky is both the Sword Tower Master and the Chairman of the Sword Committee? Who do you want to impeach?" Xian Yu Sword Spirit asked angrily. As the chairman of the Commission for Discipline Inspection, he was not allowed to reveal his emotions during the trial. But now, Xin Sword Spirit had revealed his emotions. Xin, you are also a person of status. Go and find out who the current Sword Tower Master is, Shi Juyuan said with a smile. Xin Sword Spirit was taken aback and immediately opened his personal terminal. Shi Juyuan said that he was a person of status, not because he was a person of high status, but because Xin Sword Spirit had the right to access some of Yuzhang City's confidential information. Sure enough, when Xin Sword Spirit saw the name of the Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master in Yuzhang City's confidential information, he was shocked to find that the current Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master was not Lu Lei, but someone called Gu Han. It's you. Xin Sword Spirit looked at Gohan in shock. Gohan nodded and turned to face the audience. He said proudly, "That's right. My master has already stepped down from his position as Sword Tower Master. The current Sword Tower Master is not talented, so I'm just an insignificant person." The entire venue was silent for 5 seconds, and then there was a commotion like that of a market. This kind of noise quickly spread from the trial hall to the whole of Yuzhang City. Everyone around the TV who saw this scene opened their mouths wide in surprise. Their mouths were so wide that they could easily put their fists in. What was going on? How did the Sword Tower Master of Yuzhang City suddenly become an 18-year-old young man? What happened in Yuzhang City? Why were they completely kept in the dark? All the audience instantly felt like they had been fooled, including Long Xiaoya and Lu Shihua, who had just arrived at the trial hall. They had just heard what Gohan had just said, and they were so scared that they fell to the ground. They had never imagined that their master would be one of the 2 most powerful people in Yuzhang City, the Sword Tower Master. This was a fact that they would never have imagined even if they were killed. Damn! An 18-year-old Sword Tower Pavilion Master. Our great Yuzhang City is indeed awesome. A player wrote in the largest font on the forum. Bullsh *T, awesome my ass. This is obviously a black box operation. What F** King 18-year-old Sword Tower Master. There must be something fishy going on. I guess this Gohan must be Lu Lei's illegitimate son. F** I can't accept this. Most of the audience had the same attitude. They couldn't accept that the Sword Tower Master was actually an 18-year-old young man. Shi Jiyuan sneered and said, "Ha ha, Gu boy, you finally admitted your identity. Why didn't you admit it earlier? Who would dare to judge the Sword Tower Master of Yuzhang City? As far as I know, you became the Sword Tower Master on the day of the Great Attack. Why didn't the Sword Committee announce it for a whole 17 days? Why didn't you dare to announce your identity as the Sword Tower Master? What an honor it would be! If it were me, I would have rushed to tell everyone on the first day." Shi Juyuan's words once again caused an uproar. His words woke the audience up. They had just dreamed that they had been deceived for 17 days. During these 17 days they were like fools. They didn't know that the master of the Sword Pavilion in Yuzhang City had changed. They didn't know that the master of the Sword Pavilion had become a teenager in his early 18s. They felt as if they had been deceived and played. On the forum, everyone instantly cursed Gohan. The 40% support rate for Gohan instantly dropped to less than 10%. People couldn't accept being deceived like fools, and they couldn't accept the fact that they were fools. This was the effect Shi Jiyuan wanted. In fact, he could have exposed Gohan's identity a long time ago, but he had waited until the day of the trial to do so. He wanted to humiliate everyone's intelligence in public and make everyone angry at Gohan. Then, his plan to impeach Gohan would be carried out smoothly. "Everyone, this is the matter I want to impeach the Sword Tower Master for," Shi Jiyuan said loudly. "Gohan's position as the Sword Tower Master is illegal. It was manipulated behind the scenes. He didn't get the consent of the people of Yuzhang City. Moreover, there was a huge problem with Gu Han's character. He might have his reasons for killing people, but his attitude of looking down on the people was unchanged. As long as he was the Sword Garrett's pavilion master, the people of Yuzhong City would not be able to live a good life. Therefore, under the leadership of the family head of the heaven-covering family, the 4 Emperor Sword families are united to impeach Gohan from being the Sword Tower Master. We demand that Gohan step down and apologize to all the people. Clap, 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 clap. After Shi Zhiyuan finished speaking, the whole venue was filled with warm applause. Some people in the audience clapped their hands hard to show their support for Shi Zhiyuan. These people didn't even consider whether Gohan had the ability to be the Sword Tower Master. In everyone's mind, only the oldest and highest-level sword-bearer could be the Sword Tower Master. Just based on Gohan's age, he definitely couldn't be the Sword Tower Master, not to mention that he was involved in Kai Zhongwen's matter. Even the Star Universe Sword Spirit couldn't help but secretly nod. Although he was Lu Lei's old subordinate, he was also ambitious. He had always thought that he would be the Sword Tower Master, but he didn't expect that Gohan would take it. How could the Star Universe Sword Spirit accept this? Old man Lu Lei, let's see what tricks you have up your sleeves this time. Hearing his words, countless people applauded. Shi Zhiyuan was very proud. There was only one step to impeach the Sword Tower Master, and that was to let the people of Yuzhong City vote. As long as the majority agreed to let Gohan step down, Gohan had to step down. He had already won the majority's approval. Lu Lei was bound to lose this game. Master, what do you plan to do? Long Xiaoya and Lu Shihua, who were at the door, looked at Gohan worriedly. Obviously, in their hearts, Gohan was bound to lose. Cough, cough. A coughing sound came from the side. Lu Lei stood up unsteadily. It was my idea to pass the position of Sword Pavilion Master to Gohan. I believe everyone is clear about the rules of passing the position of Sword Pavilion Master. The position of Sword Tower Master has always been passed down from master to disciple. Is there a problem with me, Lu Lei, passing it down to my own disciple? Of course there's a problem. Shi Zhiyuan revealed a cold smile. Only a pure Sword Tower Master can do this. Lord Lu Lei, when you passed the position, you already took over the position of Chairman of the Sword Committee, right? At that time, you already left the system of Sword Tower. You are no longer a pure Sword Tower Master, my Chairman Lu Lei. Chapter 679. Ridiculous. Am I not the Sword Pavilion Master after I took over the position of Chairman of the Sword Committee? Is there such a rule in our Sword Pavilion that the Chairman of the Sword Council and the Sword Pavilion Master can't pass the position of Sword Pavilion Master to his disciple? Lu Lei sneered. Of course you can pass the position to him. It's your freedom. Shi Zhiyuan replied, unwilling to be outdone. But, as the Chairman of the Sword Committee, shouldn't you pass the position to a more reliable candidate? Don't tell me that I can't find a swordsman stronger than this kid in Yuzhong City? This brat stinking of his mother's milk is just a mere famed sword-rank swordsman. There are more than 300 famed sword-rank swordsmen in Yuzhong City and more than 20 spirit sword-rank swordsmen. Is there no one stronger than this brat? Shi Zhiyuan's questions came one after another. If an ordinary person were in Gohan and Lu Lei's position, he would probably want to find a hole to hide in. And there's also the issue of experience. What experience can an 18-year-old have? What wisdom can he have? How can you leave the Sword Pavilion in the hands of such a person? Why don't you ask him to give up the position of Sword Pavilion Master first? When your disciple grows up a few dozen years and becomes stronger, we can return the position to him. That way, the position of Sword Pavilion Master will still belong to your disciple and grand-disciple. Shi Zhiyuan's words were sharp and vicious. He implied that Lu Lei passed the position to Gohan in order to control the position of Sword Pavilion Master in their hands. Yes, it makes sense. I can live for a few more years. I didn't want to pass the position to my disciple so early. How could I not know that he would be so suspected by you? Lu Lei suddenly sighed. But you don't know the situation at that time. The entire Yuzhang city was in danger. Over 1 million people's lives were threatened by Yuan Yin. If I didn't pass the position of Sword Pavilion Master to him, I'm afraid that over 1 million people would all die a violent death. What? How can the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master be filled with millions of people? Shi Juyuan was shocked when he heard that. He thought that Lu Lei was just taking advantage of the chaos to pass the position to Gohan. He didn't know that Gohan becoming the Sword Pavilion Master was related to the lives of over 1 million people. It's not your fault. I never told you about this. Lu Lei waved his hand and a conversation could be heard in the hall. Gohan, my good disciple, where are you now? Was he unable to charge out? Are you injured? Where are you? If it's me, I'll go and save you. Master, disciple is fine. Disciple has an urgent matter to ask Master. What is the password to open the first level of this refuge system? Master, please tell disciple quickly. No. How much time will you waste by going back and forth, and how many lives will be lost? Also, unlocking the third level requires a genetic code, and there are only 2 people in Yuzhang City who can unlock this genetic code. I'm afraid you won't be able to find these 5 people. My good disciple, there is actually a way to ignore the iris unlock and the third level of lock. You can directly open the refuge system. What is it? Master, please tell disciple. I'll do it even if I have to risk my life. Don't worry, you don't have to risk your life. This is a good thing. After so many years, it's time for the Sword Firmament Pavilion Master to pass on. This was a conversation that was constantly filled with electric currents and squeaking sounds. Clearly, this was a recorded conversation. From this conversation, everyone with a normal IQ could understand that Gohan had to take over the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master in order to unlock the genetic code of the refuge system. Only then did everyone remember that the most important credit given to Gohan by the government was the opening of the entire Yuzhang City's refuge system, allowing all the citizens of Yuzhang City to enter the refuge system to avoid Yuan Zhen's pursuit. Although Yuan Ko did not manage to infiltrate the ordinary zone, Gohan had saved the lives of more than 1 million survivors in the core zone. It seemed that Gohan had no choice but to take over the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master. He had done it to save people, not because Lu Lei had taken advantage of the chaos to pass the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master to his own disciple for personal gain. After understanding this, the haters who had been flaming Gohan on the forum shut their mouths. Compared to the lives of more than 1 million people, the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master was indeed nothing. Listening to this conversation, Shi Juyuan's face turned livid. He did not know that there was such a story. The version he had heard from someone's mouth was like this. Because Lu Lei took over as the chairman of the Sword Committee, he had to give up the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master. However, Lu Lei's most trusted spirit sword wielder, the Eagle Cat Sword Spirit, had been controlled by Yuan Ko, so Lu Lei passed the position of Sword Firmament Pavilion Master to Gohan during the chaos and kept it a secret. He planned to announce it after a while. Shi Juyuan did not know that there was such a story, which made him extremely passive. Originally, he had done it for his own benefit, but now it had become for the lives of more than 1 million people. It was a great merit that had to be done. No one would deny this, and the whole atmosphere of public opinion was instantly reversed. No, I have to find the flaw in this. Shi Juyuan thought silently. He was indeed an old fox who had lived for 70 or 80 years. Soon, he had an excuse. Master Lu Lei, I'm afraid this recording can't prove anything. What we heard was just a recording. Who knows what happened in reality? It's not impossible for this Gohan to finish this conversation while sitting in that coffee shop. Who knows if the fallout shelter was really opened by him? Who can be sure that there really isn't a second person next to him who can open this fallout shelter? As far as I know, the person in charge of the Emergency Response Center also has this genetic authority. If he was next to Gohan at that time, what could he say? According to the rules of the Sword Committee, without the order of you or the late Sword Immortal Baiju, the person in charge is absolutely not allowed to leave the Emergency Response Center. Shi Zhiyuan's question made the audience nod involuntarily. Indeed, this was just a recording, and there was no video or other specific images. It could not prove that Gohan was in that situation at that time. Moreover, Shi Zhiyuan's words reflected a very insidious point of view. In order to pass the position of Sword Pavilion Master to Gohan, Lu Lei deliberately transferred the person in charge of the Emergency Response Center away from the Emergency Response Center. This created a situation where only Lu Lei was in the Emergency Response Center. This forced Lu Lei to pass the position of Sword Pavilion Master to Gohan, so that he could open the genetic lock of the Emergency Response Center. This was all Lu Lei's conspiracy. Conspiracy theories are a marketable commodity at any given time. After the audience heard Shi Zhiyuan's suspicion, they all felt that Shi Zhiyuan's words made sense. This was Lu Lei's conspiracy. Otherwise, how could things be so coincidental? Gohan's support level, which had just increased a little, instantly dropped a lot. Little Zhiyuan, I knew you would have such a problem. Lu Lei's Little Zhiyuan caused a roar of laughter, and Shi Zhiyuan's face kept twitching. It was not because of the title, but because he found that Lu Lei seemed to have a way to deal with it. Lu Lei waved his hand again, and a video was projected on the projector in the trial hall. The front of the video seemed to be a young and beautiful girl, and behind her was a magnificent hall. The girl said indifferently. The girl said calmly, I promise everyone with the glory of my family that Sword Bearer Gohan was indeed in a situation where he could not make a choice. I arrived at the Emergency Response Center one step earlier than Gohan, but the Emergency Response Center was already empty. Gohan came to the Emergency Response Center alone. When he activated the Emergency Response Center system, there was no one with authority beside him. He had no choice but to succeed as Sword Pavilion Master. If you suspect that Master Lu Lei did this on purpose, then I promise you that it is impossible. After Master Lu Lei left Yuzhong City, the communication between Yuzhong City and our expeditionary force was completely cut off. How could Master Lu Lei have expected that Yuan Ko would enter the core area through the quantum teleportation array? It was even more impossible for him to have arranged all this in advance. Who are you? Little girl, why should we believe what you said? Who do you and your family think you are? Family honor? What a joke. A member of the audience cursed in the audience seat. Although this audience member's words were not pleasant to hear, he said what everyone else was thinking. They also wanted to question who this little girl was. She actually dared to boast shamelessly and make such a guarantee. Only the heads of the aristocratic families sitting in the front row had ashen faces. They had already recognized who this little girl was. This little girl had used her family's honor to make a promise. No one could refute her, and no one would doubt her. I am Liuyan Ling, a direct descendant of the Liuyan aristocratic family. I will be the future family head of the Liuyan aristocratic family. I swear on my and the Liuyan aristocratic family's honor that everything I said is the truth. After saying that, Liuyan Ling's recording ended. Everyone was silent. They might not know who Liuyan Ling was, but they definitely knew what the Liuyan aristocratic family was. They also knew how trustworthy a promise made by the Liuyan aristocratic family was. This was a promise made by the top aristocratic family of the human race. No one would doubt it. So the direct descendant of the Liuyan aristocratic family was also in Yuzhong City. The forum was abuzz with discussion. That's right. The Liuyan aristocratic family lives up to its name. Wherever humans are in danger, the Lionian aristocratic family will be there. No wonder the Lionian aristocratic family is the guardian of humanity. Little Jiuyuan, do you have any more questions? Lu Lei asked Shi Jiuyuan with a smile. Of course. Shi Jiuyuan stood up, unconvinced. I admit that the situation at that time was indeed unavoidable. Gu Han took over as Sword Firmament Pavilion Master and saved many people. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not wrong, but it doesn't mean that Gohan has the right to continue being the Sword Pavilion Master. He's just a mere famed sword wielder. Let's wait for him to grow for a decade or so. Before that, we have to give the position to someone more capable. The Sword Pavilion Master has to be changed. This is what the 5 great Jiendi aristocratic families and the masses want. Senior Shi, if I understand correctly, you won't oppose me as long as I'm capable enough, right? Gohan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said. That's right. I won't oppose you as long as you're capable enough, Shi Jiuyuan said through clenched teeth. Chapter 680. No one thought that a trial would eventually evolve to the point where it would be decided by a martial arts competition. Shi Jiuyuan was forced by Gohan's words to say that as long as Gohan was capable enough, he wouldn't object to Gohan taking the position of Sword Pavilion Master. Thus, a martial arts competition became inevitable. Elder Shi, may I ask what kind of opponent Junior needs to defeat for you to be willing to acknowledge Junior's strength? Gohan looked at Shi Jiuyuan and asked. Now in Yuzhang City, except for your master, everyone is a spirit sword level sword bearer. As long as you can defeat a spirit sword level sword bearer, I naturally have nothing to say. Shi Jiuyuan pursed his lips and said, Oh, it turns out that Elder Shi wants me to deal with a spirit sword level sword bearer. Junior is really flattered. There was a hint of sarcasm in Gohan's words. Everyone knew that it was unfair to let a famous sword level sword bearer fight a spirit sword level sword bearer. However, Shi Jiuyuan bit his lip tightly. He knew that Gohan was the military governor, and he also knew that Gohan had defeated an immortal sword level sword bearer as a famous sword level sword bearer in the game. Although the game wasn't reality, and Gohan couldn't possibly have the same strength as he did in the game, defeating a famed sword-level swordsman in real life shouldn't be a problem. How could Shi Jiuyuan dare to let a famed sword-level swordsman compete with Gohan? Even if it was a common spirit sword-level sword-bearer, Shi Jiuyuan didn't dare to send her. Then Elder Shi, please appoint a spirit sword-level sword-bearer. Let's see if Junior can defeat this spirit sword-level sword-bearer by luck. Gohan said lightly. Shi Jiuyuan coldly snorted, pressed a button on his personal terminal, and gave a few instructions to someone. After waiting for about 10 minutes, a middle-aged mature woman with a noble temperament and a cold expression walked into the trial hall. Gohan recognized this middle-aged woman. She was the Mu Shui sword spirit who had a conflict with Gohan in Fort Yuyang. It turned out that this Mu Shui sword spirit was a sword-bearer of the Jiendi clan. Gohan remembered that Mu Shui's sword spirit's surname was Shi. It seemed like she was Shi Jiuyuan's descendant. Mu Shui, come and ask Pavilion Master Gohan for advice. Let's see if our new Sword Pavilion Master has the ability to sit in this position. Judging from Shi Jiuyuan's attitude, it was like an adult lecturing a child. Although a battle between a spirit sword level and a treasure sword level was indeed like an adult teaching a child a lesson. Yes, Uncle Patriarch. The Mu Shui sword spirit nodded her head, before strolling in front of Gohan, a malevolent expression on her face. Pavilion Master Gohan, let me ask for some advice from you. Don't worry, I won't let you lie in the medical bay. It's just a spar. Hearing the Mu Shui sword spirit's words, Gohan did not get angry. Instead, he revealed a disdainful smile, which made the Mu Shui sword spirit even angrier. Let's change places. After all, this is the trial hall. We won't be able to fight freely. Shi Juyuan said with a face full of smiles. The Mu Shui sword spirit was one of the top 3 spirit sword-level sword-bearers in Yuzhang City. She had once fought against 3 nether-level sword-bearers, Yuan Ko. With the Mu Shui sword spirit making a move, this Gohan would definitely lose. However, this Gohan was indeed an expert. If the 2 of them were to fight, even 10 trial halls wouldn't be enough. Therefore, Shi Juyuan suggested to change places. When the audience heard this, they naturally got up and prepared to leave the trial hall. Wait! Gohan suddenly said, there's no need to leave here. The battle will end soon. I guarantee that no one will be hurt. Are you joking? Just because you guarantee that no one will be hurt, no one will be hurt? This is a battle between spirit sword-level sword-bearers. If a sword chi were to sweep over, it wouldn't be as simple as 1 or 2 people. Staying in this trial hall is just courting death. When the audience thought about it, they felt that it was nonsense. They got up even faster, afraid that the 2 of them would start fighting if they didn't agree. This little friend is right. There's no need to change places to deal with him. The battle will end quickly and no one will be hurt. The Mu Shui sword spirit also said with a sinister smile. She simply didn't care about Gohan. Good. Since the 2 of you are so confident, then let the battle begin. I'll count to 3 and you can release the sword lady. Lu Lei, who was at the side, didn't seem to mind the matter getting bigger. Instead, he urged the 2 of them to start the battle. However, Lu Lei's words weren't just empty words. With a wave of his hand, a void wall appeared around the 2 of them. This void wall could easily absorb sword chi of spirit sword level, so there was no need to worry about hurting the people outside the wall. Since the chairman has said so, then let's begin. Although Shi Juyuan instinctively felt that something was wrong, if he insisted on changing the venue, it would instead make him look guilty. Even if the Mu Shui sword spirit won, others would say that it wasn't a glorious victory. It was already disgraceful enough for a spirit sword level to fight a famed sword level, so how could it be any more disgraceful? 1, 2, 3. After Lu Lei counted to 3, the Mu Shui sword spirit's hand still hadn't touched her sword lady. In her eyes, a famed sword-level swordsman wasn't worth her attention. Therefore, when Lu Lei and the other 2 finished counting, she slowly touched her sword lady. It was this small oversight that instantly determined the result. The Mu Shui sword spirit's hand had just touched her sword hilt and pulled out her spirit sword lady. Before she could inject her sword essence into the sword lady, she felt her hand being hit by a huge force. It was as if a high-speed missile had hit the back of her hand. The huge impact caused the Mu Shui sword spirit to be unable to control her wrist. Her hand instinctively loosened, and before she could release her sword lady, it fell to the ground. The panicked Mu Shui sword spirit hurriedly tried to make her sword lady return to her sword, but it was already too late. A cold blade was already pressed against her neck. At the same time, her right hand was being held tightly by another hand. Even if the sword lady returned to her sword, it wouldn't be able to touch her palm. She wouldn't even be able to activate her protective shield. As long as the blade on her neck lightly slashed, the Mu Shui sword spirit's aorta would be cut open. If she didn't receive treatment in time, in less than 5 minutes, the Mu Shui sword spirit's life would be over. In this situation, whether it was the Mu Shui sword spirit, Shi Juyuan, the Emperor Sword family's patriarch in the first row, or the disciplinary committee's sword-bearers in the courtroom, they were all stunned. In less than 2 seconds, they had only just blinked their eyes, and the result of the match had already been decided. The Mu Shui sword spirit's neck was pressed against a treasured sword that was shining with a black light. This scene was also broadcasted live to millions of people's televisions. Everyone who saw this scene couldn't close their mouth. Was this Gohan still human? Even Gu Jin Jendi couldn't do this back then. Shi Juyuan muttered to himself in a daze. In his entire life, the most amazing sword-bearer he had ever seen was Gu Jin Fongqing. During Gu Jin Fangqing's visit to Yuzhang City, Shi Juiyuan, who was the family's youth representative, had the honor of speaking a few words with Gu Jin Jiendi. He was even given a few pointers by Gu Jin Jiendi. These pointers were useful to Shi Juiyuan for the rest of his life. Later on, Gu Jin Jiendi told the story to everyone. He said that when he was at the peak of the famed sword level, he had challenged a spirit sword level swordbearer. He only used 5 moves to win, and he pressed his sword against his opponent's neck. Then he used this story to warn everyone that as a swordbearer, they must pay attention to their opponent. Even if it was an opponent that was 1 level lower than them, they must not underestimate them. Otherwise, they would suffer greatly. Shi Juiyuan suddenly felt that the story told by Gu Jin Jiendi was repeating itself at this moment. Gohan was Gu Jin Jiendi back then, and his niece, Mu Shui, became that contemptuous spirit sword-level sword-bearer. However, Gu Jin Jiendi still used 5 moves, but this Gohan only used 1 move. This was too scary. Xian Yu, you can announce the winner. Lu Lei seemed to have expected this scene. He urged Xian Yu Sword Spirit, who was still stunned. According to the rules of the competition between sword-bearers, as long as one side could cause fatal damage to the other, the winner could be announced. Without a doubt, Gohan met the conditions for victory. Yes, Chairman. Xian Yu Sword Spirit composed himself and shouted with a powerful voice, I announce the end of the competition. The winner is famed sword-level sword-bearer Gohan. The crowd that was rushing out of the Judgment Hall suddenly stopped. Everyone's attention was on how to leave the Judgment Hall. From the start, no one noticed that the competition had already started, and no one noticed that the competition had already ended. Only when they heard Xian Yu Sword Spirit's voice did they turn their heads in confusion. They saw Gohan's sword resting on Mu Shui's neck. Thanks for letting me win. Only then did Gohan move his sword away from the Mu Shui Sword Spirit's neck. The Mu Shui Sword Spirit, who had lost all rationality due to her rage, immediately picked up her spiritual sword and slashed it towards Gohan's head. If this slash landed, Gohan's head would be cut in half. At the crucial moment, Gohan did not dodge or evade. Instead, he slashed out with his sword, blocking Sword Spirit Mu Shui's sword. He asked coldly, Sword Spirit Mu Shui, are you trying to break the rules of humans? Mu Shui, stop. Shi Juiyuan finally reacted and shouted in an even louder voice. After losing, she still wanted to sneak attack. This was a mistake that was enough for the disciplinary committee to lock her up for 100 years. The Shi family only had 1 spirit sword-level sword-bearer left. Even if she didn't want the position of Sword Pavilion head, Mu Shui's sword spirit couldn't be harmed. Mu Shui's sword spirit suddenly came to a realization. She blankly threw the spiritual sword in her hand onto the ground and ran out of the Judgment Hall without looking back. Just like the final 10,000 swords, she didn't have the face to stay here any longer. She didn't even take back her spiritual sword, letting her throw it on the ground. Little Juiyuan, do you have any more questions? No. What else could Shi Juiyuan say? He was already prepared to admit defeat. Okay, then let's start the voting. Lu Lei finally breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally won. He clapped his hands and said to Sinew Sword Spirit, now, immediately carry out the final procedure of impeachment. All personal terminals in the city will give the order and let them vote. Whether or not they agree to replace Gohan, let the people of Yuzhang City make the decision. Although it was for the people of Yuzhang City to make the decision, Lu Lei felt that he had already won. The people of Yuzhang City had already seen Gohan's strength. This was the strength that could defeat a spirit sword-level sword-bearer. At the same time, when Gohan took over as Sword Pavilion head, he had indirectly saved 1 million lives. There was no doubt that Gohan would win. Therefore, the next moment, all the people of Yuzhang City received a message on their personal terminals. This message only had 2 options: agree or disagree. After a full 10 minutes of voting time, the highest intelligence projected the voting result. Voter turnout, 73%. Agree to replace sword pavilion head. 58% 15232547 vote. Disagree to replace sword pavilion head. 42% 103265541 votes. Chapter 681. Sigh, we lost. Let's go. Shi Jueyuan didn't want to look at the results anymore, so he got up and prepared to leave. This was how people with such personalities were. Once they felt that they were great, they wouldn't care about anything else. However, once they encountered a major setback, they would immediately lose confidence like a frosted eggplant. Fortunately, other than Shi Jueyuan, the other family heads weren't stupid enough to not look at the results. They immediately pulled on Shi Jueyuan's clothes and said excitedly, "Old man Shi, who said we lost? We won. We won. We won?" Shi Jueyuan looked at the projected screen, and his body stiffened. He rubbed his eyes, which was rare for him. Am I seeing things? Then, 58% of them agreed to replace the Guohan system? That's right, they all agreed. Everyone agreed to replace Guohan. The Lu family head patted Shi Jueyuan's shoulder and said, Good. Shi Jueyuan revealed a bright smile, just like an 18-year-old girl. He looked at Lu Lei with this bright smile, but he realized that his tearful face seemed to be pressed by countless thumbtacks. He couldn't even move a layer of his skin. Chairman, the results are out. What do you think? When he said this, Shi Jueyuan was extremely happy. What's the rush? Lu Lei's body swayed. Isn't there still 22% of people who haven't voted? Wait until they've voted, then you can be happy. Lu Lei could only place his hopes on the people who hadn't voted yet. When Lu Lei said this, Shi Jueyuan also felt that Lu Lei had a chance of turning the tables. At this time, the people who agreed were ahead by 16%, and the people who hadn't voted were 22%. This 16% was 16% out of 78%, and this 22% was 22% out of 100%. If Guohan could win 70% of the 22%, then Guohan could turn the tables. Although this was a very difficult thing to do, it was not completely impossible. What if Guohan's luck went out of control? Just as Shi Jueyuan was worrying about this, the words of the highest-level artificial intelligence made him completely relax. You only have 10 minutes to vote. After the voting period, all the votes would no longer be recognized. The result of the vote has already been decided. The sword-bearer Guohan must leave the position of Sword Pavilion Master. The position of Sword Pavilion Master must be replaced. How could this be? Aren't you on our side? Lu Lei sat down weakly. He had always thought that the superior artificial intelligence was on his side, but he never expected that at the most critical moment, the superior artificial intelligence would stab him in the back. Good disciple? Lu Lei looked at Guohan. All of this was planned by Guohan. Maybe Guohan had a way to deal with it. Lu Lei looked over and found that Guohan's expression was very calm. There was not a trace of emotion on his face. This expression made Lu Lei heave a sigh of relief. He felt that since Guohan was so calm, he must have a way to turn defeat into victory. Just as Lu Lei was thinking about this, his communicator rang. Lu Lei took a look and saw that it was a call from Guohan. Master, man proposes, God disposes. I can see through things, but I can't see through people's hearts. The position of Sword Pavilion Master is like a fleeting cloud to me. I have never cared about it. Since these people want it, I will give it to them. Sooner or later, I will get back at them for what they have done today. It turned out that Guohan's calm face was because he had already decided to admit defeat. He had already decided to give up the position of Sword Pavilion Master. He no longer cared about these benefits. That was why he could be as calm as still water, as if he didn't care about his failure at all. Good disciple, have you really gotten over it? Lu Lei sent a message to Gohan. There is nothing I can't get over. The only thing that matters is whether it is yours or not. Now that it is no longer yours, showing any expression will only make others laugh at you. Why don't you be more open-minded? Gohan replied. This child, he really hasn't gotten over it. Lu Lei smiled bitterly. It was a pity that things could not be changed. It was all broadcasted in front of all the people of Yuzhong City. No one had the guts to change this fact. They could only grit their teeth and swallow it. Chairman Sinyu, you can announce the verdict now. Hurry up and finish the procedure so that we can elect the new Sword Pavilion Master. The Sword Pavilion is very important to Yuzhong City. It cannot be without a master for a day. Shi Jiyuan urged in a victorious tone. Sinyu's sword spirit was a little hesitant. Although he was very happy that Gohan had been removed from his position, he might be the next Sword Pavilion Master. Because of this, he had to respect Lu Lei's opinion. It was still unknown who the next Sword Pavilion Master would be, but it would definitely be a choice between Lu Lei and the Emperor's Sword aristocratic family's two camps. He was Lu Lei's man. It was impossible to get the Emperor's Sword aristocratic family's trust if he changed his camp. Therefore, at this time, he had to respect Lu Lei more and listen to him more. He had to let Lu Lei push him as the only candidate in his camp. Therefore, Sinyu's sword spirit was in a state of hesitation. Without Lu Lei's clear indication, he never announced the final verdict. This dragged on for another 10 minutes. When the audience and Shi Jiyuan were starting to get impatient, Lu Lei finally said, Sinyu, enforce the law impartially. Xian Yu's sword spirit had been waiting for this order. He knocked the gavel in his hand on the table and said loudly, Then I shall announce that from this moment on, Practitioner Gohan's identity as the Sword Tower's Pavilion Master. Please wait. Please wait. Before the Xian Yu sword spirit could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a panting voice. Sinyu's sword spirit looked and saw that the one who spoke was a skinny youth. However, looking at the 3 sword sheaths on his waist, he was actually a famed sword rank sword wielder. How dare you? Who are you to actually dare to obstruct the disciplinary committee's verdict? Someone, lock him up in the confinement room. Let him learn the rules of our disciplinary committee. Sinyu's sword spirit said sternly. Immediately, a few people went forward to grab the youth's arm. The youth struggled and said, Let me go, don't grab me. This imperial bloodline impeachment is incorrect and incomplete. I have important evidence. Wait, stop. Lu Lei's heart jumped. He seemed to have seen this youth somewhere before. He thought for a moment and remembered. Didn't this youth come back from Chongyang Mountain with Liuyan Ling and the others? Lu Lei vaguely remembered that this person was a disciple of the Heaven-Shrouding family. Since he was a disciple of the Heaven-Shrouding family and said that there was a problem with the imperial bloodline impeachment, could there really be a big problem? Thinking of this, Lu Lei couldn't sit still anymore. He immediately gave the order, and the people who were about to take Yi Wenjun away also stopped. Child, speak slowly. Tell me what's wrong with this. What do you mean by incorrect and incomplete? What evidence do you have? Tell me, Lu Lei said amiably. Lu Lei said kindly, but Yi Wuying, who was sitting next to Shi Jiyuan, rolled her eyes. Her body seemed to have lost its strength. She slumped down and muttered to herself, Smelly brat, spoiling my big plan, this smelly brat. My name is Yi Wenjun. The imperial bloodline impeachment document is incomplete. I have a supplementary document here. Huff, huff. Yi Wenjun said as he breathed roughly. Because the public transportation system in the core region hadn't been restored, he had evidently run all the way here. You're Yi Wenjun? Could it be that you're a disciple of the Heaven-Shrouding family? What's your relationship with the family leader sitting there, Yi Wuying? Lu Lei asked despite knowing the answer. He's my father and I'm his son, Yi Wenjun replied honestly. So that's how it is. Looks like you're the next family leader of the Heaven-Shrouding family. You do have the right to sit here. Lu Lei nodded. What supplementary document did you say? What does that mean? I found this in a hidden place in my family's library. It's a supplementary document about the imperial bloodline impeachment. My father only found the official document, but he didn't find this supplementary document. I found it when I was cleaning the library today, so I hurried to bring it here, Yi Wenjun replied. There's a supplementary document? Why didn't you mention this to us? Hearing Yi Wenjun say this, Shi Jueyuan immediately asked Yi Wuying. I don't know. I don't know anything, my son found it. Yi Wuying said weakly and guiltily. Hearing his tone, Shi Jueyuan could guess most of what had happened. Yi Wuying must have known about the existence of this supplementary document long ago, but he deliberately concealed it and didn't tell me. However, he didn't expect that he would be exposed by his own son in the end. Seeing Yi Wuying's expression as if his mother had died, Shi Jueyuan knew that this supplementary document contained important information that would determine the outcome of this entire matter. However, this guy hid such important information. I'm asking you, tell me honestly, what does this supplementary document say? Shi Jueyuan asked even more harshly. I don't know, I really don't know. Yi Wuying only knew how to say that she didn't know. She wouldn't say a single word more, which made Shi Jueyuan extremely angry. At the same time, an extremely terrifying thought appeared in his mind. Could this Yi Wuying have colluded with Lu Lei to set up a trap for me? Good, very good. You and your son are both good. I'll remember this. If we fail today, let's see how long your Yi family can last. Shi Jueyuan threw down such a threat and ignored Yi Wuying. Yi Wuying's body trembled even more violently. Chapter 682. Good girl, let me see your supplementary document. Lu Lei walked to Yi Wenjun's side and said urgently. Yi Wenjun opened her dimensional pocket and took out a normal envelope and handed it to Yi Wenjun. Yi Wenjun opened the envelope and saw that the so-called supplementary document was just a simple piece of paper. Everyone, including Gohan, stared at the paper in Lu Lei's hand. They wanted to know what was written on it and if they could turn the situation around. Phew! Lu Lei let out a sigh of relief, and a smile suddenly appeared on his originally stern face. He respectfully held the piece of paper in his hand, and then asked Yi Wenjun, Good girl, can you confirm the authenticity of this envelope? I only know that this was found among our ancestors' belongings. But our Yi family has been through many disasters. I can't be sure if the things on this paper are real or fake, answered Yi Wenjun honestly. Very well, Sir Bat, Lu Lei said to the heir. Could I trouble you to examine this piece of paper and the notes on it to see if they were left behind by His Majesty Shroud Heaven? What? This paper is His Majesty's authentic handwriting? The audience was shocked when they heard Lu Lei's words. Wow, there are less than 200 pieces of His Majesty's authentic handwriting. The discussion on the forum started again. Isn't that right? I heard that His Majesty hated writing. He would use electronic documents whenever he could. He would only write by hand on paper when he had no other choice. In his later years, he destroyed many of his authentic handwriting. There are only 127 pieces left in the world. Even a single word can be sold for tens of millions of RMB, an audience member replied. Wow, if there are 100 words on this piece of paper, wouldn't it be worth billions of RMB? The poster who spoke before asked in surprise. Are you kidding me? There are less than 20 pieces of His Majesty's handwriting with more than 100 words. Which one of them isn't worth billions? This answer shocked the audience even more. If they could find an authentic piece of His Majesty's handwriting, wouldn't they be rich? Alright, stop discussing. Hurry up and watch TV. After Lu Lei asked the question, a void gate appeared in front of him. Lu Lei took the paper and stepped into the void gate. After a minute or two, Lu Lei walked out of the void gate. I have sent the paper to the appraisal office. The highest level AI will be in charge of the appraisal. Just wait for the news, Lu Lei said calmly. Everyone waited for another 10 minutes. Lu Lei received a message on his communicator, so he opened the void door again and repeated the process of going back and forth. Then, he returned with the note. What is the appraisal result? Shi Zhuyuan asked excitedly. This is indeed the work of His Majesty Shroud the Heavens, said a robotic voice. It was the voice of the highest AI bat. Then please project the contents of this piece of paper. I won't show the real thing to everyone, Lu Lei said. The projector projected the contents of the note, and Yang Qi's eyes went wide in anticipation of seeing what His Majesty Shroud Heaven had left behind. To the Sword Committee. I have thought about it again and again, and I feel that it is inappropriate to rely solely on the will of the people. The sword bearers are the protectors of humanity. They fight bravely, and their will is above the people. Therefore, I have decided that when I impeach the Emperor, the will of the people will be the same, and the sword bearers will be different. An ancient sword bearer's will is equivalent to 100, a treasure sword bearer's will is equivalent to 1,000, a famed sword bearer's will is equivalent to 10,000, a spirit sword bearer's will is equivalent to 100,000, an immortal sword bearer's will is equivalent to 1,000,000, an emperor sword bearer's will is equivalent to 10,000,000. This is the way of harmony, and I hereby supplement it. I Ching's handwriting. So that's how it is. His Majesty Shrouding Heaven really is far-sighted. Shi Zhuyuan nodded. When the other sword-bearers saw this, they could not help but nod to themselves. Only some of the ignorant spectators felt quite confused when they saw this ancient text, and they did not know what the heaven-shrouding sword emperor was talking about. But it didn't matter. Very soon, the vernacular translation of this sentence appeared on the forum. Everyone saw the vernacular translation and suddenly understood. To put it simply, there was only one core meaning in establishing this letter, and that was, after the impeachment of the emperor bloodline began, it was not appropriate to judge based on the will of the people. The will of the swordsman should be above the will of the people, so in terms of the specific distribution of votes, the votes of the swordsman and the votes of the people were different. The thoughts of the people were equivalent to one vote, which meant that each person only had one vote. The sword bearers had different votes based on their level. An ancient sword had 100 votes, a treasure sword had 1,000 votes, a famed sword had 10,000 votes, a spirit sword had 100,000 votes, a celestial sword had 1,000,000 votes, and an emperor sword had 10,000,000 votes. Taking Yuzhong City as an example, there were around 20,000 sword bearers in Yuzhong City, and their votes added up to more than 10,000,000. In other words, the will of these 20,000 sword bearers was equivalent to the will of 10,000,000 ordinary people. After understanding this, the ordinary people couldn't help but feel a bit angry. It turned out that in Shrouding Heaven Jiandi's eyes, 100 ordinary people were only equivalent to one ancient sword. However, they quickly calmed down because they were already used to it. They were used to living a life where the sword bearers had a high status. Compared to the privilege of the sword bearers, a little bit of votes was nothing. Furthermore, the position of Sword Tower Master had nothing to do with ordinary people. Ordinary people would never come into contact with Sword Tower, so they wouldn't care if an ordinary person became the Sword Tower Master. Chairman Sinew, because this additional document has been discovered, I would like to request a reset of the voting result. I would like to invalidate the votes of the sword bearers, and let the sword bearers vote again to correct the result, Lu Lei said. Although Sinew Sword Spirit was very unwilling, he couldn't go against Lu Lei's wishes. He simply nodded and agreed. Mr. Bat, do you have any objections? Lu Lei asked. This is Emperor Shrouding Heaven's wish. I have no objections, Bat's electronic voice answered. With the agreement of the two people, Lu Lei didn't even need to ask Shi Zhuyuan for his opinion. He immediately announced that the voting for the sword bearers would begin again. Old Shi, what do you think about this? Will there be any changes? A family head asked Shi Juyuan worriedly. Right now, there are more than 12,000 ancient sword-bearers in Yuzhong City, which is 1.2 million vote. There are more than 6,000 sword-bearers, and now there are more than 4,500 sword-bearers, which is 4.5 million vote. There are more than 400 famous sword-bearers, which is more than 4 million vote. There are 23 spirit sword-bearers, which is 2.3 million vote. And Lu Lei alone is worth 1 million votes, which is about 13 million votes in total, Shi Juyuan analyzed. We have 12 spirit sword-bearers, which is 1.2 million vote. There are also about 200 famous sword-bearers who belong to our family, which is 2 million vote. Ancient sword-bearers and treasure sword-bearers are a bit weaker. Even if they only have 2 million votes, they add up to 5.2 million vote. Including the 5 million votes we already have, we have more than 10 million vote. And the most they can get is 7.8 million vote. We will definitely win this round, Shi Juyuan said confidently. And among these nearly 20,000 sword-bearers, who knows how many of them will vote? Maybe they will be like ordinary people, with only 78% of the voting rate. Immediately issue the order to all of our people to vote. We must make sure that we get all 4.2 million vote. With this, our victory is without a doubt. Shi Juyuan's words were like a reassurance pill. Everyone's mind calmed down, and they waited for the voting to begin again with a smile on their faces. Clearing the votes for the sword-bearers, Bat's voice said anxiously. Immediately, on the original number of votes, the number of agree and disagree options dropped. These were the number of votes belonging to the sword-bearers. Because there was only one vote for each profession, it was impossible to infer the actual voting result according to the number that was removed. But what worried Shi Juyuan was that the number of disagree options was more than 10,000, which meant that most of the sword-bearers were on Gohan's side. Start to send the votes to the sword-bearers again. The voting time is 20 minutes. Those who don't vote after the voting time will automatically abstain. Bat's indifferent voice said, and immediately, every practitioner's personal terminal received a new voting option. Every sword-bearer carefully considered their choice, and then cast their precious vote. The voting for the immortal sword-bearers has ended. Disagree with Gohan's resignation, 1 million vote. Bat announced. Immediately, Gohan's votes increased from 10326,541 to 11326,541, which was 11.32 million votes, while the votes for the agree option remained unchanged. This vote must have been cast by Lu Lei. It was a matter of course that 1 million votes were cast for Gohan. The expressions of Shi Juyuan and the others didn't change. The voting for the spiritual sword-bearers has ended. After the immortal sword-bearers, the spiritual sword-bearers had finished voting, which meant that all the 23 spiritual sword-bearers had voted. This result was also within Shi Juyuan's expectation. After all, the spiritual sword-bearers were important targets for the big families to rope in. They knew clearly who was on which side, so there was nothing to hide. Agree with Gohan's resignation, 2 million votes. Disagree with Gohan's resignation, 300,000 votes. The next result announced by Bat almost made Shi Juyuan jump with joy. On the contrary, Lu Lei's face was so gloomy that he wanted to poke a hole in the sky. How could old Shi be like this? Don't we only have 1.2 million votes? When did we have 8 more spirit sword-level sword-bearers? When did they switch to our side? The head of the Lu family asked very excitedly. If 20 of the 23 spiritual sword-bearers were on their side, then they didn't need to impeach Lu Lei. They could directly make Lu Lei a mere figurehead, and Lu Lei would have nothing to say. No, they are still on Lu Lei's side, but on the issue of the Sword Pavilion Master, they have the same interests as us. Which spiritual sword-bearer doesn't want the position of Sword Pavilion Master? Shi Juyuan said gloomily. He actually ignored this important issue. Fortunately, the result of this issue was on his side. We can celebrate the victory in advance. Shi Jiuyuan said. Chapter 683. This bunch of ungrateful beasts. Seeing the voting results, Lu Lei could guess what his spiritual sword-level sword-bearers were planning, so he cursed with resentment. These spiritual sword-level sword-bearers were all sword-bearers that he had helped in his early years, and each of them treated him like a father. He didn't expect that they would stab him in the back at such a crucial time. Master, don't be angry. If it were me, I would be the same as them. Who doesn't want to be a step higher? Master, you should be glad that you still have 3 of your most loyal subordinate. Guhan's communication was sent to Lu Lei's personal terminal. Looking at Lu Lei was ashamed and angry, and he couldn't wait to find these 8 traitors. But Lu Lei endured it. If he really found these 8 people, then these 8 people would definitely run to the side of the aristocratic families, and he would be a lame duck in the future. Sigh, I thought I found a way to turn defeat into victory, but in the end it was all for naught. Seeing that the consent option had increased from 155232547 votes to 17232547 votes, which was 17.23 million votes, and the gap between the two had widened to nearly 6 million votes, Lu Lei simply had the urge to give up. Because the number of people in the immortal sword level and spiritual sword level was the smallest, the voting results of these 2 levels were announced first. If it was still based on the number of people, then the next result should be the voting results of the famous sword level. But it was more likely that the voting results of these 3 levels would not be announced until the end of the 20th minute. Because as long as one person did not vote, the voting results of that level would not be announced. After waiting for about 17 minutes, unexpectedly, the voting results of the famous sword-level sword-bearers were out. The famous sword-level sword-bearers have all voted. Agree with Guhan's resignation. 1.03 million votes. Disagree with Guhan's resignation. 3.56 million vote. Bat reported the results, and then the scene was in an uproar. This meant that out of a total of 459 famous sword-level sword-bearers, more than 3/4 of them voted against Guhan's resignation. A total of 356 people voted against Guhan's resignation, and only 103 people voted for Guhan's resignation. The difference between the 2 votes instantly narrowed to 3.5 million vote. How could this be? What are our people doing? Are they crazy? How do you normally control your subordinates? Shi Jiuyuan couldn't accept this result. According to their calculations, there were more than 200 famed swordsmen in their faction. In other words, they should get at least 2 million votes out of the votes for the famed swordsmen. If they included the scattered votes from the unaffiliated people, they could get an optimistic estimate of 3 million vote. But in reality, it was a different story. Not only did he not get a single vote, he didn't even get a single one. On the contrary, more than half of the people in his base voted for Guhan to stay. This was really strange. What happened in there? Why did they betray us? Shi Jiuyuan suddenly felt the pain that Lu Lei had felt. I guess it's probably because Guhan is the same level as them. The family head of the Lu family guessed. They are all famous sword-bearers, and they hope to see someone at the same level as them become the Sword Tower Pavilion Master. That way they will feel more honored. The most important thing is that the votes are anonymous. We don't even know who betrayed us. They are fearless and let me find the detailed list. I will definitely not let them go. The family head of the Lin family was the most hot-tempered one. He kept cursing. It seemed that he would really take revenge on those famed swordsmen who betrayed him. Only an idiot would pursue this matter. Shi Jiuyuan glanced at the family head of the Lin family and thought to himself, these famed sword-level sword-bearers only dared to betray him in secret. Was he going to force them to betray him openly as well? However, Shi Jiuyuan didn't bother to remind the family head of the Lin family. He was eager to see the Lin family decline. The 4 big families had always been scheming against each other. Today they could form an alliance. Tomorrow they could stab each other. I think there is another possibility. Yi Wuying, who had been silent, suddenly said timidly, "After all, Gohan saved the lives of everyone in the core area of Yuzhong City. Those famed swordsmen were all saved by Gohan. They have no other way to repay Gohan's favor, so they can only help Gohan." I didn't expect Yi Wuying to not be a complete idiot. Shi Juyuan looked at Yi Wuying in surprise. Even he hadn't thought of this. But it was also because he was closely involved. As long as he calmed down, it would not be difficult for him to figure out the reason. Wait, if this is really the reason, then the ancient sword and treasure sword swordsman will also be doomed. The family head of the Lin family exclaimed. Shi Juyuan and the others' hearts tightened at the same time. There were still nearly 6 million votes left. They had to get more than 25 million votes to win the final victory. Originally, Shi Juyuan had thought that getting a quarter of the votes would be a piece of cake. But if they really wanted to repay Gohan for saving their lives, then they might fail miserably. Thinking of this, Shi Juyuan and the others, who had thought that victory was already in their grasp, suddenly became nervous. There was only 1 minute left. The voting period was about to end, and the votes for the ancient sword and treasure sword swordsman were about to be announced. The 20 minutes finally passed. Even though there were still some swordsmen who had not voted, it was finally time for the ancient sword and treasure sword swordsman to be announced. The first to be announced was the ancient sword swordsman's voting. Ancient sword swordsman's voting is complete. Voting rate 95%. Agree with Gohan's resignation, 432,100 vote. Disagree with Gohan's resignation, 756,500 vote. As the ancient sword swordsman's votes were added to the total number of votes, the difference between agreeing and disagreeing had shrunk to 3 million vote. The rest of the treasure sword swordsman's votes became very important. There were a total of 5 million votes for the treasure sword swordsman. If Gohan wanted to win, he had to get more than 75 million vote. Otherwise, Gohan would definitely lose. This was equivalent to getting 83% of the total number of vote. Even in the United States before the apocalypse, he had only gotten more than 83% of the votes when he was at his peak. This result made Gu Juyuan feel a lot more at ease. His heart was no longer beating so hard. Lu Lei's old face kept twitching. If his 8 spiritual sword swordsmen did not betray him, then the difference between the two choices would be reduced to 4 million vote. Gohan only needed to get more than 65% of the treasure sword swordsman's support. This was a huge difference from 83%. Treasure sword swordsman's voting is complete. Voting rate 98%. Agree with Gohan's resignation, 105,600 vote. Disagree with Gohan's resignation, 440,000 vote. When Shi Juyuan heard the 1.05 million votes, he was so excited that he almost cried. He didn't even hear the numbers clearly. However, this was not important. He had already won. Gohan would not be able to surpass his votes no matter what. He was bound to get kicked out of the position of Sword Pavilion Master. Thinking of the whole process, he had gone through so many hardships and tribulations. So many plans had been resolved by Gohan one by one. Even the final trump card, the impeachment of the Emperor's bloodline, had gone through a wave and a supplementary document had been produced. If it weren't for the unexpected betrayal of the spiritual sword swordsman, the person who would start crying tears of joy would be Gohan. Of course, he was also shedding tears of sorrow. However, all of this was over. The victory belonged to him. He no longer needed to think about the problem of Gohan. Next, there was a more important thing to think about, which was how to hand over the position of the next Sword Pavilion Master from Lu Lei to his own spiritual sword swordsman. Come to think of it, who should be the candidate? The best was naturally to let his own clansman, the Mu Shui sword spirit, become the sword pavilion master. However, just now, the Mu Shui sword spirit was defeated by Guhan, and her prestige was greatly damaged. The old guys of the other three families would definitely use this as an excuse to firmly oppose the Mu Shui sword spirit to represent the families to compete for the position of sword pavilion master. He still had to think of a way to deal with these three old guys and make their candidate lose his reputation. Shi Jueyuan was indeed a scheming guy. Now he had already begun to plan how to deal with his former allies. In a trance, he couldn't even hear the words around him clearly. He only heard the cheers of all the audience, and then vaguely heard Lu Lei's laughter. Wait a minute? Lu Lei actually laughed? Shi Jueyuan woke up from his own world. He looked at Lu Lei and saw that the other party's old face was smiling like an 18-year-old girl. It was so bright and charming. What was going on? Shi Jueyuan hurriedly looked at the three family heads beside him and found that all of their faces were extremely stiff. Their eyes were looking at the results of the votes projected by the projector, as if they had seen something unbelievable. Agree to replace the sword pavilion master. 20020,647 votes. Disagree to replace the sword pavilion master. 20343,041 vote. The number of votes that disagreed to replace Guhan was actually 320,000 more than the number of votes that agreed to replace Guhan. The final winner was actually Guhan. This is impossible. Did I learn mathematics wrong? Shi Jueyuan calculated in a daze. Before the results of the treasured sword grade were announced, I had 96 million vote. Adding the 1.05 million votes, it is indeed 20.02 million vote. Even if the voting rate was 100%, the remaining votes for Guhan should be 3.45 million. Adding his original 15.94 million votes, it should be 19.39 million vote. How could it be 20.34 million votes? Where did the 950,000 votes come from? Shi Jueyuan calculated in his heart a few times and found that he was right. There was indeed an inexplicable 950,000 more vote. It was this 950,000 votes that caused him to lose and Guhan to win. Shi Jueyuan couldn't figure out how these 950,000 votes came about. Lu Lei, you still have the cheek to laugh. You cheater! Shi Jueyuan could no longer control his emotions. He jumped out of his seat and stood face to face with Lu Lei. I say, old Shi, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. You called me a cheater. How did I cheat? Tell me clearly. Lu Lei looked at Shi Jueyuan with eyes full of provocation and mockery, which made Shi Jueyuan even angrier. Fine, Lu Lei, let me ask you. How many sword bearers are there in Yuzhang City? Shi Jueyuan asked loudly. 4,536. Lei reported the number without any hesitation. Good, you are telling the truth. With 4,536 sword bearers, you should have 4,536,000 votes, right? Shi Jueyuan asked again. No, it's not 453,600 votes, Lu Lei said calmly. You're talking nonsense. How could I make a mistake with such a simple math problem? Shi Jueyuan felt like his intelligence was being insulted. It was just 4,536 with 3 zeros. How could he get it wrong? Ahem, only 98% of the votes were cast. That's a total of 445,000 votes. Don't get too worked up, Lu Lei said with a smile. Shi Jueyuan was almost angered to death by Lu Lei. Fine, we'll do as you said. I increased the votes by 1,050,000, so you will have 3.4 million votes at most. It should be 1,934,000 vote. There is a difference of 1 million vote. Let me ask you, where did the 1 million votes come from? You are not cheating. What are you doing? Shi Jueyuan's stern voice silenced the entire hall. The ordinary people who did not know the total number of sword-bearers did not think there was anything wrong at first, but the sword-bearers who knew the total number of famous sword-bearers were dumbfounded. They had the same question as Shi Jiayuan. Where did the 1,000,000 votes come from? Out of nowhere? Everyone turned to look at the excited Lu Lei. Unexpectedly, Lu Lei spread out his hands and smiled bitterly. Don't ask me. I don't know why either. This is Bat's calculation. It has nothing to do with me. So everyone looked at Bat, which did not exist here. Could it be that Bat was helping Gahan cheat? If that was the case, then this level of cheating was a little too low. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.